Good evening, everybody. It's Friday night, and we all know what that means. It's time for another episode of Heavy Metallurgy. I am one of your hosts, Alan, from the Let's Talk Metal channel. Good to see you folks filling in the chat already. Hi to Mike, Aaron, good to see you too. Figured you'd be here for this one. Frosty's already here. Anthony, good to see you too. So, yeah, hope folks will enjoy the show tonight because we've got a very cool guest, and I might be relying on him because my other co-host apparently has become shy and disappeared for the moment, but he'll be back in a moment. But yeah, let's me go ahead and do a couple of the quick intros. Well, there he is. Marty, you okay there?
Yeah, I just wanted to, something that I think we can all relate to, wish a happy birthday, 35-year anniversary to this album that came out this past week, 35 years ago. King Diamond's Them, their third album. Classic
Possibly
record.
The best one.
You think so?
I like it more than I like it more than Abigail, actually. Yeah.
You know what? I think I like it a little bit more than Abigail too, but Fatal Portrait's a hard one to top for me. But when this came out, what year did this come out? 87-ish.
88 if it's 35 years old.
Yep. It's this ate up my whole year pretty much. I could not stop listening to this every day, multiple times a day. But I saw that little tidbit on Facebook that this turned 35 this week, so I want to throw that in before we got too far down the road.
We should rewatch Clerks as well when we thinking of that album.
Yep.
Yes, I worked at a fast food restaurant and we played heavy metal after hours, cleaning the place out. So yeah, been there and reenacted that.
Yeah.
Yes, but Marty, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I got to say, I'm ready to be outclassed all night long because the research for this, I come to find out, sadly, that I am deficient in 80s Euro heavy metal just because I kind of, as a kid, sidestepped that and went kind of into the thrash world. So
that is okay. That is quite okay because we have brought on the man to help you solve that problem and to point you in the right directions. So, yes, without burying the lead any further, Dan, welcome to the show. It's very awesome to have you there. For those of you in the audience who don't know Dan, he is the sort of owner, proprietor. I like to think of him as a curator of the Corroseum website. And the first thing I want to ask you about is pronunciation, because I hear that name pronounced two different ways, and it's time to settle it. How are we supposed to say it? Is it Corroseum or Corroseum, or do you care?
I always figured it to be the Corroseum because I mean it's a silly word pun. Combining what happens to old metal. Well, it corrodes, and museum and mausoleum, so it's Corroseum. Corroseum sounds weird, but I've heard people use it. So
yep, I have to.
But
it
it's
made
wrong.
Sense to me. It is wrong. Okay, yes. So yes, Dan and I are right, and the rest of you suck.
Yep.
Yes. No, the museum part is what always made sense to me, that it should be pronounced that way.
Museum or mausoleum. Yeah, museum. Yeah.
Yes. So Dan, for those watching who aren't familiar with the website, can you tell us what is the Corroseum?
The Corroseum is a heavy metal collector and trivia fan site about rare, old, obscure, forgotten, mostly 80s heavy metal, which I've been doing, I think this October, I've been doing it for 20 years. And it started out, it was sort of inspired by two previous European websites, two of the most classic and legendary old metal collector sites, which was it Austrian or a Swiss site called Metal Treasures, which was amazing, and the Metal Page, German site. And I started doing a few reviews of rare records for, I think it was Metal Treasures. And then that site went away, so I figured I'd do something similar myself. And the Corroseum was born, basically. I had sort of a different fan site a few years before that. I think it was called like Dance Metal Site Thing or something like that. But the Corroseum was born out of my interest in unearthing old obscure metal albums from the 80s. And it's grown into a lot of different things today. I mean, there's a huge, of course, a huge review archive since we took over the Metal Page reviews a couple of years ago when that site went down, and there's a large archive of metal labels and old 80s metal, but basically all 80s metal labels and their complete discographies, or their discographies up until the 90s at least. Probably internet's biggest metal fanzine archive is on there as well.
Yep.
Lots of specials dealing with anything from East European 7 inches to like high resolution copies of Lost inserts. And I mean, you had our friend Christian, you Alan, you had Christian on your channel. He's doing a special on US 7 inches.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's lots of different stuff, and of course our forum, which has been going on for as long as the actual site.
Yes, I was checking the other day, and I signed on to the forum for the first time in March of 2007. So, and it was already well established and up and running when I stumbled across it. So it's been a very long running community over there.
What's the platform for the forum? Is it like the old, what they used to call, what was the Maniacs forum and stuff? That was like easy.
Yeah, it's one of these classic, it's called BBS something.
PH or yeah. PBB.
Yeah, I can't remember. My brain is atrophied.
Yeah. I mean, it's the forum I didn't build myself. The website is completely homemade. The forum is using sort of like a standard protocol.
And hopefully you have it backed up and triple backed up in case something cataclysmic ever happens.
There were a few years actually when the forum was down, because I mean you can't keep something like that up 20 years straight. So you go through different things in life. So it was down about, I think, 1.5, 2 years or something like that. And I was positive that the whole database, which basically holds all the forum info and posts and everything, that it was lost forever. But I actually found it, because actually my web provider back then, they went bankrupt. So I thought everything was lost, but the forum was backed up on a different site, and I could sort of rejuvenate it again, which was like a huge thing for me back then. So most of the stuff that's been written since like the early 2000s should be there.
Yep. And that's one of the neat things about the Corroseum for folks that aren't too familiar with the site. It really is like a museum where it just has these different wings. You can go into the section on, Swedish metal, and you can spend days just going through all the, reviews of singles and stuff. And then there's an entirely different wing for North American 7-inch singles. And then there's this gigantic wing for, all these old 80s fanzines. And something that's, very impressive about it, Dan, everything he puts on there is very high quality. If you want to see, pages or the back cover of the insert, everything is a high resolution scan. It's not, little blurry JPEGs where you can't really make out anything. Dan makes sure that everything on the site, is very nice quality, very easy to see, read, look at the front, look at the back, all that kind of stuff. It's very high quality work that you've done. You have a very high standard, and you've maintained it over a long time.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah.
So this is ranging around the rare heavy metal stuff. So people that want info on death and black metal, they're going to need to shuffle on down the road, correct?
Yeah. I used to say that the span of the website is anything from Saracen to Sarcophago, which means basically anything from melodic new wave metal up to sort of like the proto death and black stuff. I of course love Bathory like everyone else, and like early black metal stuff like Master's Hammer and Sarcophago and stuff like that. So, but beyond that, that's something for a different site. So this is mainly focused on this particular part of metal history. This was rooted in the 80s.
Now, one thing about the metal culture is a lot of people that are diehard fans like us. I mean, do you have a band as well? That's usually a byproduct of being a fan, as you get into a band.
Oh, I mean, Actually, that question to me was so weird. What does he mean with? Do you have a band as well? Does he mean like a favorite band?
No, I like you
The whole
playing an
concept was
instrument
so
in a band.
alien. The concept was so alien to me. At first, I didn't even understand the question.
Right.
No.
No.
I think in like 89, 1990, I sang in sort of like a crossover band with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, I mean, crossover in the real term that, one guy liked The Clash, one guy liked The Cure, one guy liked Cryptic Slaughter. So it was weird. But it lasted for like 1 year or something like that. But no. Yeah. Oh, no, right. Sorry. I did sing in a metal band as well. So like an epic metal band called, I think we were called Still I'm Sad. But we were pretty good, but the vocalists sucked. And unfortunately, it was me. The music was pretty good. No.
So you're not going to come clean and admit to being, one of the secret members of Flames of Hell?
No, sorry, wrong Scandinavian country.
You could have like spent a summer over there in Iceland or something. It was a stretch, but I thought I'd try the gotcha question and get the confession out of you. Good deal. But so Dan, for his topic tonight, has chosen to talk about Euro metal, which is, I think, a great topic, not just because it's one of his big areas of specialty, but it's also a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. People often say, "Oh, that's a Euro metal band," or "Oh, that album sounds kind of like Euro metal," but we often don't spend much time thinking about what that means. Other than that, I guess it's not American. So I think that's just a good place for us to start. Dan, what is Euro metal? How would you explain it or distinguish it from other styles of metal?
That's a good question. I mean, I have my own like sort of head canon what Euro metal means. I have a very clear distinction, but it's very personal and it relates to a couple of albums which we'll be talking about later tonight. But the reason I came up with this theme was because I find myself using the term Euro metal as a descriptor when I discuss metal with friends or when I write reviews, and it struck me that maybe this doesn't mean the same thing to people as it does to me. I mean, we use terms like new wave of British heavy metal sound, or the US metal sound, or US power metal sound, or whatever. And I mean, of course, we all have our own definitions of those terms too. But I mean, Euro metal to me, it's been a weakness since I discovered one of my favorite bands as a kid, which I'm going to be my first record to talk about. I think it's sort of, I think there is a definite European sound in my mind. And I don't want to talk too much in this stage of the stream because it's going to come up more when we talk about the records, I think.
Yeah. One thing like I said, researching for this topic, I pull up like, okay, I'm just going to throw this at Google, European heavy metal from the 80s. I mean, it was all stuff that I've seen Alan talking about on his channel and showing before. And I'm like, I haven't heard any of this stuff. Zero. I've heard zero of this stuff. But
so you listen to absolutely nothing I recommend.
Oh no, I don't.
Nice to know where I stand here in the pecking order.
Well, I know if I want to buy anything that you show, I'm going to have to pay probably $200-300 to get it. So I'm good. But one thing that when I think of Euro metal, my brain instantly, all the bands that pop up to me are German, and I'm like, is German metal and European heavy metal synonymous? I mean, is that those two one and the same?
I can say already now, it's not a big spoiler, that the majority of the albums I've picked out for tonight are German.
I have a bunch too.
I would say like Germany, Holland, Belgium. That's where you find most of what I consider typical Euro metal.
Yep.
And I mean, there's from practically all. I mean, you can hear Euro metal from any country in the world, but to me, it's Central Continental Europe is where you find this stuff.
I see you showing off your Graven Image cup there, hot shot.
Yep. Hey, If you had a Graven Image coffee mug, you drink out of it all the time too.
Right.
I think
Another
it's time
thing
to switch to a beer though.
Another thing that kind of popped in as I'm looking through some of the crap I picked for the evening. I don't want to discredit, say, the U.S. scene by any means, but there seems to be a level of sophistication to some European metal. European metal is kind of sophisticated, and if there's any longevity to it, there's a tendency for it to get a bit commercial.
Oh, you mean Eurometal in general?
Eurometal, and some of the older ones. The first thing that popped in my head was Europe, like the Final Countdown.
Yeah.
Carrie, that album. I think of TNT from Norway. Bands like that. And even, well, I don't want to start throwing all these names because we might be showing them later. But I don't have a very big pile, so I'm gonna shut up now.
But I know exactly the phenomenon you're talking about. But I mean, it's I always figured it to be an international phenomenon for most or many good bands starting out in the early 80s and then falling into the commercial radio trap.
Yep.
But maybe it's ever so slightly more common for European bands now that you're saying it. I don't know. I haven't thought of it that way. I always thought of it as a like international dilemma for 80s metal.
And it seems too, if you start looking at, obviously European metal kind of transformed into power metal, but it just seems like Europe is a little more geared towards there's a metal machine. There's like an industry behind it. Whereas here it's a lot rougher in America. Bands like Sabaton, for instance, just to pull out, they're huge. They're enormous. They're touring US with Judas Priest. I mean, it seems like it's the countries were ripe for the style to grow and change and become widely accepted. And that was funny too, because going through the list of stuff I was looking at, I mean, a lot of bands I never heard before, if they just sort of stuck it out a little bit longer, maybe they would have had more of a foothold. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that goes for so many bands in the world. But there were a lot of metal produced in Europe, a lot of metal bands per capita. So yeah.
Alan was digging for something. What'd you find?
Oh, nothing. Just I knew there was one record I definitely wanted to talk about, and I forgot to pull it off the shelf, of course. So silly me.
Well, should we get into this? Is there anything else we want to talk about here before we jump into this?
I'll throw in my 2 cents, kind of on some background stuff. My take on it was kind of, similar to Dan's, that it's a phrase that we use a lot, but may not mean the same thing to everybody. I think for me, when I hear Eurometal, or most of the time when I'm using the term, I'm often thinking of, continental Europe. So kind of separate from, Britain, Ireland, any of the UK stuff. And I'm usually thinking of stuff that was inspired by the new wave of British heavy metal, or kind of came up and got developed about the same time or soon after. So, for me, it's often the things that immediately start popping to mind are releases from early 80s into the mid 80s. The Swedish and German scenes are obviously two of the more, prolific and well-established ones, but you have lots of other cool releases from other countries scattered around Europe as well. It can vary from kind of a little bit rough around the edges to like what you were saying, Marty, where some of them do sound, a bit more polished and, probably had more of a commercial aspiration to them. I usually also tend to think of releases that, maybe smaller labels, more limited budget. So maybe the production's not top notch, or, maybe the artwork on the cover is pretty simple. Often, of course, too, hearing it, with American ears, I'm usually thinking that, there's probably something a little bit, there's going to be maybe a little bit of an accent, in the vocals. Some of the lyrics are going to be phrased a little bit oddly for those of us on this side of the pond. And stuff like that. So, that's the kind of a general picture, I have for Eurometal. As some of it can get, definitely, heavier, more aggressive. But for me, by the time you get into, say, like, German thrash metal, I wouldn't lump that in with Eurometal as a term. I think it's like, okay, Destruction, Sodom, they're going over here in the thrash bin, the German thrash scene. they're not going into that general Euro metal style. At least that's how I would use it most of the time.
Yeah. I mean the Euro trash. That's definitely. I mean that's a distinction as well. We could do a whole stream about that as well. But also vocals has a lot to do with what makes it sound European. Because I mean, at least in the first half of the 80s, it was different traditions as far as vocalists and vocal style goes in metal. Which should I go into the first record?
Sure.
Yeah,
And I would say the accent thing is a great topic too, because
this is this is like a perfect segue.
Yeah, because the accent always, to me, like listen to the German thrash bands, that accent just seemed exotic from a kid in America. Like wow, these guys are, this is so European what I'm listening to. I'm really branching out here. But anyway, Dan, go ahead, show off your first record. What you got?
Yeah, we were talking about, or I was mentioning that the vocal styles was something that to me define European metal or Euro metal. And I think this record, this classic, is you could argue that it is the first traditional real Euro metal album, and it is of course Accept's Breaker. And what makes this sort of be on the edge of the Euro metal sound, or sort of making it, is, I think, if you're listening to the two first Accept records, the first one is a bit undefined. It's hard to put your finger on exactly where it's coming from. It could be from anywhere. I mean, it was from '79, so it was in the dawning of the metal era. But and the second one, I'm a Rebel, which I believe someone here didn't like much. I love it, but it's still a bit unfocused. But with Breaker, they took a step away from the ultra typical new wave British metal sound, and there was a speed and a heaviness and a sort of rusticness, which isn't the word, but I don't care, which sort of defined Accept, and that's where the traditional Accept sound started. And so many European bands have copied this sound since. And I would say perhaps the Restless and Wild album, which followed, were perhaps even more archetypical of the Euro metal sound. But Breaker was the first one. I mean, it's an amazing album. Pretty much every song is great. Starlight, Breaker, Son of a Bitch, Burning. I mean, it's it is a genre-defining record. And Accept were one of my first favorite bands. I mean, it was the first band which I completed the discography with, so it had a lot of impact in the way I value and appreciate metal today. And of course, we were talking about vocals earlier. I mean, Udo Dirkschneider for me, and that vocal style. I mean, growing up with loving Accept, those kind of vocal styles became sort of like the baseline. And everything that sounded, a little bit more melodic, a little bit more, Bruce Dickinson, they were sort of like outliers. I mean, traditional metal vocals sounds like Udo Dirkschneider. And then there's a few vocalists we can actually sing, but it's okay. It's not total metal, but they sing in a metal band, so I guess that's metal too. But I mean, this vocal, and I will talk a lot about vocal styles this tonight. But I mean, Udo Dirkschneider's vocals were totally groundbreaking, I think.
Great pick.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think people in this day and age tend to forget how important Accept was to the explosion and popularity of heavy metal there at the dawn of the 1980s, because they started gaining momentum and spreading out, becoming popular relatively fast, and so many other bands wanted to follow that formula. They would see that band on tour or be able to get their records, and they were I would dare say, in terms of inspiration during those early years, they were on par with Iron Maiden and Judas Priest in terms of going out and inspiring other kids to be like, I want to do what they're doing. Going to the concert and seeing them or hearing the record and just thinking, forget my other plans. I no longer want to be an astronaut. I want to be, you know, Wolf or Udo or one of those guys up on stage.
And
Because Accept kind of, you know, by the late 80s, Accept had kind of fallen a little bit out of favor with a lot of metal fans. You had the vocalist, you know, changes and stuff, and they kind of started to feel kind of dated. But yeah, they were so important early in the 80s, and all their early albums were great.
I would just add to the fact that, you know, not only did they maybe defined what European metal was, also albums like this, Restless and Wild, it's got a speed component to it, which would later go on to influence some European thrash bands. You know, 1983, this came out, I guess. It's
82,
83. 80.
Fast as a
This says
Shark.
83 on this, but it's probably a reissue of some sort. But yeah, I mean, Fast as a Shark. It's a very influential, quick song, and it rubs off. That type of stuff definitely rubs off on the community at large, you know.
Oh yeah, I've read so many interviews with different band members and different genres over the years, and you know, when they're asked about, like, you know, stuff they heard as a kid or what got them inspired, that song comes up. They're just like, I heard Fast as a Shark when I was 11 years old, and I could not believe a band could play that fast. And I was hooked immediately. Played it to death. You hear that testimonial from so many metal musicians. Fast as a Shark. Yes,
that's how
really
it started
a moment
for me as well.
Well, okay, yep.
All right, Alan.
All right, I'm going to start with also an early one that for me kind of helps set the definition. If you wanted me to pick just, you know, one album to, you know, put in the dictionary and say, this is what Euro metal is. This is what it looks like and what it sounds like, and just use this as your reference point moving forward, I would probably pick this one. It's not. I'm not saying it's my favorite. I like the album, but I'm not saying it's the best album ever. I just think it really fits the definition. It just encapsulates everything. It is Pictures, Eternal Dark. This is what I had to go grab off the CD shelf. I have almost all vinyl tonight, but this one I've got on CD. So Pictures, another one of those bands that were on the scene pretty early. Now, this is a band from the Netherlands, if anyone's not familiar with it, and this is already their fourth album. So they had albums out in 80, 81, 82, and then this one came out in 83. You know, so this was a band that was putting out a lot of stuff. They got heavier from release to release. You know, some of them are a little better than others, but this one to me just really captures a lot of it. You've got the kind of metallic, you know, very 80s looking logo. You've got simple but pretty cool and effective cover art. Always liked, the crazy skull thing with the one eye and all. Musically, it is very straightforward. There's no frills to it. There's no fancy stuff going on in the background. It's 4/4 time signature, guitar, bass, drum, vocal kind of stuff. It hits those kind of your qualities, I think, of with Euro metal. You have some big sing-along choruses. While it's maybe a little rough around the edges at times, it's also got a good sense of melody on lots of the tracks. There are songs that will stick with you for a long time. I didn't listen to this album for probably 10 years at one stretch, and when I got it and put it back on, just like, yep, instantly I remember pretty much every track on this. And when you look at this album cover, and you start thinking about, the new wave of traditional metal bands that are, coming out with, younger kids doing, the retro thing. Just look at this cover as the template and think how many different bands. Haunt, every freaking Haunt album looks like this. This is, exactly the kind of thing. This is the, aesthetic that they are going for, visually and sonically. So yeah, for me, this one's just you could just put this one in the dictionary as European metal. See picture Eternal Dark. Listen to that, and you have a good feel for what I mean, at least when I'm using the phrase Euro metal. So Dan, what are your thoughts on Picture?
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it's archetypical Euro metal, and what can I say? I love that album as well. I think. Picture as a band, there might be a bit under the oak of having that one defining album. I think the one before that, was it Diamond Dreamer? Or
Yeah, Diamond.
Yeah, it's
Dreamer
pretty good
or
as well.
Deceiver. Mhm.
Bit more traditional new wave British heavy metal. This one was, they came into their own, and the albums after that was sort of not quite on par with it. But that particular album is great.
Yeah, it is the picture album you want.
Yeah.
If you stumble across any of their others in the wild, they're worth checking out for the right price, but they may not be as good. One thing that's happened, this is a Dive Bomb pressing, and they've paired up some of the albums, so you can actually get two for the price of one. This also has Heavy Metal Ears as the second album on the disc, which
weird.
oddly
It's
is
the
their
first and the third.
Yeah, they've got one for the first and third, and one for the second and the fourth, which frankly, pisses me off when labels do that. I want them put together chronologically, not with it's like, well, there's an album in between these two, so if you play these two, you're missing a chapter in between. It's like, how'd they get from this one to this one? Well, you have to buy our other 2 CD set. But thankfully, Dive Bomb releases very fairly priced, easy to track down, so you can check them all out if you want to. But Eternal Dark is definitely the place to start for picture. All right, Marty. Over to you, sir.
Well, I'm going to be doing the underhand pitching here. So this is not the album I grabbed for first by this band because it's not a favorite, but it's something I heard when I was a kid. And there's no denying the influence that Scorpions had on heavy metal. Mm-hmm. And this is probably their big commercial breakthrough record. I mean, I think Blackout had a hint of that leading up to this. This is very commercial. And in fact, there's a song on here that's got Beat It by Michael Jackson. It's almost note for note, the same harmony in the guitar. But I just wanted to pull this so I could talk about this for a second. I was sitting here with this, all proud of this record, and then realized it's 1977. I'm like, oh crap, I'm out of the age group here. But it's this stuff here that paves the way for Euro metal. I mean, 1977. What is this? Their fourth record?
That one's about 5th or 6th.
Yeah, I mean, their first album came out in 1972. It's a year younger than I am. It's ridiculous how influential and long running this band is, and they just had a unique. When I think of Euro metal, that's kind of the first thing that pops into my head because I have such a limited vocabulary when it comes to the stuff. And obviously, when I was younger, this was all over MTV because Rocky Like a Hurricane, Coming Home. I mean, this whole album was pretty much a hit. And the subsequent worldwide live album that came out afterwards was just as kind of a big deal too. So you can't really say European metal without having the Scorpions somewhere in that discussion. Oh, yeah. Because they're they predate everybody. They really do. Mm-hmm. And the thing that makes them so cool and unique in German, they're weird. I mean, you listen like that Vicious Attack, the Sales of Charon. The riffs in that song are just bizarre. They're just weird from out in left field riffage. Uli John Roth was just he was a force. And even though he left the band and they got a little more streamlined and commercialized, they still maintained that unique sound because of Klaus's vocals and just the way they make songs. Anyway, Scorpions.
Oh,
yeah. You're very right, Marty. That is, with all their success in the 70s, they established, an excellent hard rock scene in Germany. I mean, that's just, that's prepping the soil. That's lining everything up for, Germany to be, probably the biggest metal scene. I don't know if there's even a probably, the biggest metal scene in Europe, as you roll into the 1980s.
And you also have to say, you have to also identify the fact that the 70s, the fact that a band like the Scorpions could continue to grow and write, because they're different. They're a weird band. If a band like a 70s era Scorpions came out today, I don't know if they'd have the same easy. I'm not saying that they had an easy road in the 70s, but I just don't see anything being a major hit or something that anybody would really pay much attention to. I don't know. The 70s were a different time, and it really paved the way for what was to come in the 80s for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they were one of those pioneering bands, of course. I mean, sort of, you can't quite put them in the early 70s rock niche, but they were before, of course, the 80s era. So, yeah, trailblazers for sure.
All right, Dan, you are back.
It's me again. Oh God. Okay, we're gonna keep doing the classics, I think, and this, I saw it mentioned in the chat. I think this band, of course, is a must if we're gonna talk about classic Euro metal, and it is, of course, no, sorry, wrong record. We talked about that. Oh, there it is. It's quite similar in style if you have it under your table. I'm talking about Running Wild.
Ah,
Yes.
damn it.
Did I pick the same record?
No,
I
I picked Under Jolly Roger.
Yeah, of course.
That's where the change, and it got a little more less dark and more uplifting, you know.
Yeah. But I mean, of course, I would be surprised if Alan didn't pick a Running Wild album himself as well. We had to kick him out if he didn't.
No, he's not in the band anymore. He's not in our crossover band. I'll bring the Cryptic Slaughter. You bring the vocals, Dan. We'll get this.
Yeah.
We'll get this done right.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, Running Wild, I discovered through. I think they actually played on Swedish National Radio, our only metal show back in the 80s, or well, the main one at least, called Rockbox. They played a song from this particular album. I think it was Gods of Iron. To this day, it will always be my ultimate Running Wild album, Running Wild track. And shortly after that, I did pick up the first one, Gates to Purgatory, which is an amazing album as well.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think my favorite, I've later come to appreciate, I mean, the later Pirate stuff, but for many years, Run Wild for me were like the first two, maybe first three albums and the EPs and demos and stuff. But this album, I've seen that it's actually one of the lowest rated ones with Running Wild.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's weird because I think this is like the first one, but even better. I mean, almost every song is great on this one. Mordor. I mean, I even like Evil Spirit. I mean, it's an amazing shugging song. Chains and Leather, of course. I mean, but starting off with like Branded and Exiled, Gods of Iron, and also one of my all-time favorite album sleeves. It's the best album sleeve.
It's
for
cool.
Running Wild,
Yep.
I think. Yep. And once again, vocals. Rock and roll's vocals are, of course, very typical of the Euro sound. And it's not, I mean, you can imagine it yourself. If you're going to try thinking about a contemporary US band singing the way Rock and Rolls did, can you come up with anything? I can't really come up with anything, I think.
And as he went, the way he wrote riffs, I mean, you want to talk about earworm riffs. I mean, that album, kind of transitional, Under Jolly Roger. I think this is even a transitional record. It wasn't until the one after this where the riffs just really got
Under Jolly Roger is, that's basically sounds, it has musically, it's much more similar to the first two than the later ones, I think. But I've since then grown to appreciate the later stuff. Like I still hold, I mean, stuff like Pile of Skulls is an amazing album, and they sort of came back a little bit to the. I mean, many of the later albums tends to sound sort of like Under Jolly Roger more than they sound like the power metal stuff that was in between. So. So I've grown to appreciate a lot of the later stuff as well, at least up until the mid-late 90s. But for me, Branded and Exiled, it is so heavy. It's like Judas Priest with Venom Dirt. And in my head, this is, you know, when Running Wild words, Chains, Leather, and black metal. You know, in my head, earlier Running Wild is a black metal band, and that makes sense. That makes them cooler.
It feels very first wave for sure, especially the first album, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right, Dan, that second album, it's just very underappreciated for some reason. A lot of folks, everyone is, very complimentary of the debut. And then the second, I'm like, well, it's not Gates to Purgatory. And then they turned into Pirates. And they either like the Pirates or they don't like the Pirates. And it's just like they just kind of gloss over that second album. It's a real shame because I agree with everything you said. It's a great album. It's got that weird dark sound in the production that just kind of adds that little spooky layer to it. I think it's great.
All right. Alan, you are up.
Okay. Let's see. I've shown this one from time to time, but it definitely fits here tonight. And it kind of fits with one of your opening comments, Marty. That some of the stuff have a little more commercial appeal and some success to it. We've got Denmark, Pretty Maids, Red Hot, and Heavy. First full length, and the band's already on CBS at this point. So again, this was a band that got picked up pretty quick. Had some success. You've got great vocals. There are some songs on here that are already starting to trend towards being more commercial friendly, mainstream, however you want to phrase it. But you also have just huge anthems like the title track, which is just a ball buster. And you've also got just some again almost proto speed metal anthems with in particular Back to Back is the just huge track with these big soaring guitar leads and melodies all over it, the big chorus. Once again, it kind of it's just checking all these boxes for Euro metal. It's swords and battles, and it's epic, and you sing along to it, and the guitars are all over the place, and it gets stuck in your head forever. It's one of the perfect Euro metal songs. It's one of the songs that a certain band from Sweden, who shall remain nameless, because when I type it into Dan's site, it mysteriously changes into a different name. Covered this Back to Back got covered by other bands. It was one of the things that was quickly identified as when power metal and traditional metal were getting more popular again in the late 90s. The bands were like, here's where we're coming from. We're going to cover Storm Witch, we're going to cover Pretty Maids, we're going to cover Warlord. These are the bands that inspired us. So yeah, if folks aren't keen on some of the albums after this point, I get it, because they do get kind of lighter and lighter. I think they're still good albums, but they are getting a lot slicker, a lot more radio ready. But yeah, at least the debut mini LP, mini EP. I always know what the fuck to call that thing. The short beginning one, and then this full length album. Absolutely great Euro metal releases.
Oh yeah. It's so good that you picked that one up, because it was actually going to be my third record. But this means now I have more places for the more obscure stuff. And I mean, that opening track, Back to Back, it is, the definition of album opener style. It is maybe, I mean, if you think about album openers, that one's on par with Free Will Burning. It is.
Yeah, Aces High. It's right up there with those kind of tracks.
And once again, great vocals. Very, very European, the sort of semi-growly stuff. Yeah, cool. Excellent choice.
Thank you. All right, Marty, we'll pass it back over to you then.
All right. You want to talk about vocals? Let's go to 1982 and get Evil. Let's the King of Evil.
Oh yeah.
the self-titled Merciful Fate 4-song EP, which was later on the fans call Nuns Have No Fun. Dang, I got something in my throat that's tickling like crazy. It's driving me nuts. Sorry. This is one of those vocalists where the first time I heard King Diamond, I hated it. I just did. Just like, what the hell is this crap? But once it clicks, it's like I can't get enough of it. I can't unhear it. It's better than Halford. It seems more extreme than Halford. I mean, Halford, I think, has got a lot more meat behind he pushes his screams are maybe not in the falsetto range. They're just more authentic screams, where King goes falsetto. But this band told me that the devil was real when I was in high school, even though he's not. But still,
oh, spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! Yep. Sorry, everybody. This is iconic band that put out, well, two of the most evil albums I've ever heard. Don't Break the Oath being the most evil album I've ever heard. This is a precursor. I mean, you've got Doomed by the Living Dead, which come out of the demo stuff, Devil Eyes, demo stuff. I mean, all this stuff is really early, and actually did not make it on any of the full lengths. So it's kind of a unique snapshot in time. Put Denmark on the map for evil stuff, and we owe King and the Sherman and the Denner guitar duo a debt of gratitude for sure.
Best guitar duo ever?
I would say I like them more than Smith and Murray or Murray and Stratton. I prefer the Danes for sure on this one. All right.
Speechless.
So good. So good. You're up, Dan.
I'm up. Oh God, I haven't prepared. So which one should I pick?
Probably one that I have.
Oh, okay.
The way it's been going.
Oh yeah.
That's why we always say, we aim for 10, but we tell everyone to bring 15 at least, because we're going to step on each other's toes a couple of times back.
Oh, yeah.
Just for viewers, if they're not aware, we don't, preview or share lists with one another beforehand. So it's a surprise to us when folks hold things up too. But we sometimes do overlap.
And I also want to mention, I bitched about it briefly in the email chain we had going, but striking the UK from the European conversation, which makes complete sense. But you're taking out Venom, you're taking out New Wave British Heavy Metal, you're taking out Maiden. I mean, you're taking out big components that actually had I think of those bands, I think European, to be honest. I mean, Venom, I don't know. Venom.
I've had enough European people.
Venom, I think of Venom.
I know. I think of Venom, but yeah.
I've had enough European people yell at me for including the UK with the rest of them, and I've had enough British people yell at me for including them with the rest of them that
can't make everybody happy.
There's enough of a cultural distinction there that that we should separate the two.
Right on. Oh no, I agree, and I agree with that. I just wanted to say it made the picking a little bit harder for guys like me. Like, oh shit, they took out all my brain power here. Anyway,
you're doing fine. You're showing the classics. It's great.
Okay. You're up, Dan.
Okay, I'm gonna go with another German one. It's we're not getting into the super obscure stuff quite yet, but I think this album with the German edition of Avenger, which later became Rage.
Yep, which I'm going to show later, actually.
Oh yeah, also a great band. But when they started out, they were called Avenger, released on the very Euro metal, German metal Wishbone label in I think '84, and this is one of those perfect metal albums in my world. I mean, I think basically every song is great. And I mean, the sleeve is amazing. I mean, Prayers of Steel. You have the claw, you have the snake, you have the hellfire. Vocals, cool as hell. And to me, I like this a lot more than Rage. I'm not gonna piss on Rage. I mean, because they were a great like Euro speed metal band. This is a little bit more to my liking because it's a bit more traditional heavy metal, and I mean, lots of great diversity in the tracks. And I mean, the title track is one of the great Euro metal anthems for me, Prayers of Steel. And I don't know really what else to say about it. It's one of my all-time favorites from Germany, and I think kind of underrated. I know Rage has a fairly big fan base, I think, among like 80s or German metal fans or speed metal, power metal fans. And still, I don't hear that many people singing the praise of this pre-Rage masterpiece.
Yep.
So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree with you. I like it better than early Rage. I think it's better than their first two albums they did under the Rage name for sure. And I think maybe one reason it doesn't get as much credit, it's always been a little hard to track down, at least maybe until some of the reissues have become available. I remember I got a copy late 90s, early 2000s, and it was considered one of those kind of, tough ones to track down. The only reason I got it was that, and I got it very cheap, the copy somebody had obviously laid it down on one of those Japanese outer sleeves with the super sticky strip across it, and they put the front cover on that and then peeled it off because you had this thin straight rip all the way from side to side across the front of the cover. But hey, it allowed me to buy the album and check it out for a reasonable price because back then I could not have afforded to bid for a nice copy.
Jurgen actually sent me an email a while ago saying I need to check that out, and I still haven't got it. I've not heard it yet. I'm a big Rage fan, but I have not heard Avenger yet.
I think you'll like it, Marty. I think you'll definitely dig it.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's go to let's do Sweden for the next one. Sweden, and Dan can correct me or argue. I'm guessing they probably would have the second biggest metal scene in Europe after Germany.
Or the UK, I guess.
If we're leaving the UK out of the conversation.
Yeah, that might be true. Yeah.
Okay. They'd be in the running for second place, if nothing else. And yeah, again, another one of the real early bands that helped set the stage for that country were these guys, Heavy Load, and pulled Death to Glory, second album. In some ways, if you wanted to be a little bit of a jerk about it, I guess you could say it's their first quote unquote real metal album. The debut, if no one's heard it, has a very different sound. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just it does not sound like this album or subsequent things they did. The cover says it all. You got a dude fighting a polar bear with like a battle axe in the middle of the snow. You don't even need to hear it. It's already awesome. But again, this really just screams Euro metal. You got the big melodies, the huge hooks, the very epic flair to battles and swords and axes and stuff, and the guitars are just fabulous. Very high ringing clarion kind of guitar tone. It's exactly what Euro metal should sound like. This copy has the poster with it. Some pressings or copies had like a 7-inch with it. I'm not cool enough to have that version. Dan probably is. But yes, one of the really epic bands, very beloved. Real shame they didn't last a long time. They had they had 3 albums, and a couple of singles, but then they kind of just faded out. But I've noticed they
dropped their load and moved on.
It was too heavy to carry. So
the load was too heavy to carry. Yeah,
they blew their load all at once, and we're gone. But I've noticed they actually have a new album scheduled to come out in October. So in a couple of weeks, we're going to see the release of what's it called, Riders of the Ancient Storm, first Heavy Load album since 1983. It's coming out on No Remorse Records in just a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious. I'm always a little worried about these kind of comeback things. But Dan, do you know have you heard anything from it or about it?
No, I heard that they were going to record a new album. I mean, it could go all kinds of ways, I guess. I mean, I did catch them live at Keep It True a couple of years ago before. I think it was the last pre-COVID Keep It True festival. And that show was a bit of a disaster. I think they played some better shows later. But I mean, sure, they could still be recording a great new album. We'll see. I mean, we've been let down before by great bands. Maybe this will be the exception. But I haven't heard anything about the way it's supposed to sound or anything. So we'll see.
Okay.
But I mean,
sounds like Ruthless here's very excited for it. I hope it is Ruthless. I hope they can recapture that spirit they used to have and just wow and amaze us. That would be awesome. It's gonna be one of those when I hit the play button, I'm gonna be sitting there just like, oh, please don't suck. We will see. We'll have to report back in a couple of weeks and see how that one turns out.
All right,
on to you, Marty.
Well, I was scraping here, but I revisited this album or this EP this week, and it holds up, man. This is a solid record, a solid release. We're back in Denmark. We got Evil with Evil's Message. Now the big rumor about this thing is it was that Kim Christmas was King Diamond, Kim Peterson. I I don't know if that's ever been confirmed. I'm looking at the cover here and the pictures of the band, and maybe, I don't know if he made the pictures or not, but here's a band that this came out in 84. The band didn't get around to putting out a full-length album until 2015, so they're not prolific, is not something they are, and they probably broke up for quite a while after this, because they did release a split, a couple demos, and a video, a live on stage video. So this is solid. It's solid heavy metal. It's produced well. It sounds really good. And actually, this is a bootleg. I bought it. It's the other. It shares a disc with this, which is
nice.
Kind of drives the the whole King Diamond part of this home. It's obviously a bootleg CD, but
same original label.
Yep.
Yeah, Raven Records.
Yep, absolutely. It's a solid EP. If you've never heard this, check it out. It's great. It's solid, well written, good vocalist, good guitar playing. The guitar playing is the riffs and stuff are the standout on this for sure. So yeah,
actually, Marty, the standout is the closing track. And what's the title of that closing track again? You don't get away without saying it.
Take good care of your balls.
That's sound advice right there.
It is. It is sound advice.
It sounds like the title of a novelty track, but it's actually a pretty solid heavy metal tune. It's not just like a throwaway joke number as you might expect.
I was in a parking deck at a hospital the other day in Grand Rapids, and the person next to me parked too close, so I had to shimmy my fat body in the door. As I was going, one of my nuts got squished between the door and me, and that song should have been playing at the time. It would have reminded me to maybe take better care of my balls, because it hurt.
If you had remembered Evil's message and taking good care of your balls,
yep,
they tried to tell you, man.
See what you signed up for, Dan. See what you signed up for.
Marty, don't break the balls.
Don't break the balls.
Breaking the balls.
Had my balls to the wall, essentially.
Sounds like you had your balls to the door of the sedan.
God, it hurt. You don't get kicked in the balls for a while. When something like that happens, you're reminded that it sucks. Anyway, you're up, Dan. Sorry.
Me again. My God, we move fast tonight.
That's right. We're a power trio. We're moving fast like a power trio.
Okay. So have we had more Danish bands than German ones so far?
The last so far, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. I think I'm going to do this one. This is it's almost overhyped today, and it's even by being overhyped, it's still underrated because it is probably one of the greatest Swedish albums of all time. And I mean, I know it's one of those albums which people are hyping everywhere nowadays, but we can't have this dream without mentioning the, to me, most archetypical Swedish Euro metal album, or mini in this case, because there weren't that many of them. I mean, there were Heavy Load. We had, I guess you could argue, Maninia Blade were sort of Euro metal in a speedy way, but the ultimate band and the ultimate release is, of course, Black Ritz with Gotham City. An album which everyone should know about, so I can just put it down and we can move.
I don't know anything about
it. Yep.
No, but this was pretty, actually, in a way, pretty unique Swedish record. It was very heavy, very evil. I think it came out in 83, I think. Yeah. Because the single was 82. This was 83, LP 84, I think. Yeah. First of all, it's an amazing cover art, and combining the classic black, white, red with some yellow on the cross is so aesthetic. It's beautiful.
Yep.
And every song on this album is perfect. I mean, Monsters of Rock, which was actually the vocalist's fanzine I recently discovered, which was the title of Ola Olsson's fanzine back in the day. It's on my site. It's such a hit, 1995, and I mean, The Coven, probably the best track, my personal favorite on this one. And what's special about this one and the first 7 is, of course, the iconic vocals of Ola Olsson, which is sort of a love-hate affair to a lot of people. I mean, it's been described as, deadpan or whatever, but I mean, to me, I have a problem with primitive vocals when they're out of tune, and they never were with Gotham City. I mean, you could argue it's a bit deadpan, but in the perfect way. I mean, it's and the vocal harmonies are from a guy who basically can't really sing. The vocals are never out of tune, and the vocal harmonies are amazing. And that sounds so contradictory, but it's true. The guy can't sing, but his vocal harmonies are awesome, and he's never out of tune. I mean, it's. I could hype this album forever, but I mean, 100 people have done so before me, at least here in Sweden and in Europe. So I'm curious to hear what you think about this classic.
Never heard it.
Yeah.
You're in for a great night because you're going to put it on as soon as we leave the stream.
Gotham City. I'll check it out.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool band. You know, all their early stuff. I pulled the single to show just because why not? But yeah, even the tracks on here are just fantastic. You know, very guitar driven. Just big, huge sing along sound. It's everything you want out of early Swedish metal. Absolutely can't go wrong. So maybe think I'm not even sure if I'm holding it right side up or not. But yeah, very cool band. Into the Unknown, also good album that they did back in their original run. And you're right. It gets hyped a ton now. 20 years ago, nobody cared about that band. No, I remember seeing that sitting at a record show for like $20 around 2001, 2003. I was like, wow, that's cool. I found it. It's just like, wonder why nobody's. Oh yeah, nobody, no in it whatsoever. And now it's one of those grail items that everybody's just desperate to track down.
All right, Alan, you're up.
All right. Well, Denmark's going to stay in the lead for at least one more round, I suppose. Go with a very old favorite of mine that I've talked from time to time. Witchcross, Fit for a Fight.
You've shown that record a bunch, and I love the design of it. I love the silver and blue and the color in the center. It's just a cool layout.
It really is. Yeah, it's pretty unique. You zoom in,
and it's got other things on it I like too.
Marty's very big into werewolves. They're kind of like a Sasquatch.
Very, very big werewolf fan.
Kind of like a Sasquatch. So yeah, it's close enough for Marty. But yeah, this is the original Euro pressing small label. But this was also distributed on Roadrunner, so much easier to track down. But yeah, once again, just fabulous stuff. The songs are very catchy. It just goes down the list. You've got the cool fantasy kind of thing, which is definitely a part of the tradition of Euro metal. It's got the big guitar sound. It's got the cool vocal melodies. The vocals are very good, but they've got just a little bit of that kind of European accent to them, like Marty was saying. That for those of us who only speak American. It kind of adds that extra like ooh la la. That's kind of
that's exotic. Yeah,
I like it. Yes, trade. It's so fetch. But this is another band that unfortunately they did some demos, made this album, which was fantastic, and that was it. Yeah, there's compilations and anthologies and stuff you can pick up. But you did get another album. What I'm looking right now, 20X to Grind came out in 2013. So once again, you were looking at about a 39-year, this was 84 and then 2013 before they got another full album out. Yeah. Some of these bands, they just, it's the same stories you hear from American bands or UK bands. Sometimes there's just lineup issues. They couldn't get on the right label. They just got overshadowed as the scene got more and more crowded. And this was, to me, always a great example of one of those gems that got lost in the shuffle, that, they should have gotten more attention. And, they almost did. They were distributed with Roadrunner, so it's not like they were completely buried, but never quite got over the hump, sadly. But it's a fantastic album. If you look for the Roadrunner pressings, the cover's the same, but it's a different shade of blue. It's kind of a little more pale. So it does have a slightly different cover than the one I just showed. But Marty, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
No, that's an amazing album as well. One of the great European ones. And I think after Most for Fate and King Diamond, maybe the best Danish metal album absolutely. And their first 7-inch is actually awesome. I mean, the A side of the 7-inch is sort of generic boogie metal, but the
Yeah.
B side, No Angel, is a 10 out of 10 anthem. It's their best song. And I mean, almost every song on the album is great, but that B-side on the 7-inch, No Angel, is amazing. And this album, there are a lot of different pressings on it. I think there's like a Canadian Roadrunner version of it, and there's a it's a Japan pressing with an OB and everything. So, I mean, finding some sort of original isn't impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will turn up. Finding the one I just showed, that took a while. Yeah, we're not going to talk about how long that took me to track down over here.
Some weird local Danish label, I think.
Yeah, but yes, you're right. Yeah, the Roadrunner is the one you usually see, but you're right. There are some other versions of it, and yeah, the single is very cool too. Great band. Should have done more. Wish they had. We say that a lot about these kind of bands.
Yep, it's going to be true for many bands tonight.
Very much so. All right, so Denmark's still in the lead. I have a feeling Germany will catch up here before long. I'm going to try to. My plan is to actually kind of give a little bit of love to a whole bunch of different countries, but we'll see what Dan and Marty do in terms of the geopolitical map. So, Marty, where are you taking us next?
Well, I'm going to Sweden, Dan's home turf, and I'm expecting a little bit of talk back on this one because I don't think people don't think it's the right genre, but we're going with 84. Wait, no, I'm wrong. 86. Epicus Doomicus Metal. Yeah, epic doom metal, but if you're going to sit here and split hairs, it's still heavy metal at its core. And there's a guitar solos were a tribute to that. And I think the first album I heard by this band was Nightfall, so that's always going to be my favorite. But there is no denying the influence that Sweden had on the world with this stuff. And Candlemass, in spite of being a doom-ish band, they toured America. They got out. They went places with this. You know what?
Oh yeah.
You start slicing down the genre tags. You know, doom metal. It's got a following, but it's way smaller than a lot of other things. And for a band like this, to go out and tour the world and still be putting out records to this day, it's amazing. And this is a great record. A lot of classics on here. Is it doom metal? Yeah, but I said it's still heavy metal at its heart. And the clean vocals, the guitar solos, and the overall riff construction, it's just a slower form of heavy metal. I don't know if it fits, but I picked it anyway. I figured screw it.
I think it fits in a sense that it is very European. I mean, it doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like an American band in any sense. I mean, they were obviously influenced by Trouble a lot, but
and they have heavy metal teased hair here too. So
of course.
They get it in a mullet. You got the mullet here too by Leaf. So
Yep. Yeah, and Voskov points out here too. They had the previous Project Nemesis,
which I could grab. I have that CD. I should have grabbed that.
Yeah, it still has the doomy overtones, but it was maybe shifted, a little more towards that, traditional metal structure, whereas Candlemass kind of, took the doom side and amplified it a bit.
Unfortunately, the vocals kind of ruin the Nemesis album. Musically, it's amazing. It isn't as epic as Candlemass
or produced as well either.
No,
but,
I mean, I could do with poor production. That's no problem when you're into 80s metal, but Nemesis had a lot of potential, but the vocals are a bit so-so.
They
but
sucked.
of course,
it was Leaf doing it himself, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. But,
all right.
Amazing album.
Circled back to you.
Oh, it's me again. My God, you're moving so fast. Okay. What we're gonna pick? Let's see. Okay, still not going to go to the obscure ones. I'm going to pick a really generic one, which I don't think anyone... It's a band that I've never heard anyone sing the praises of, which is good. It makes sense because this is not a very good band, generally. And it's a German band. And the band is Mass. Have you heard of Mass at all?
Yes, I had one of their albums a long time ago, but I don't remember much about them, to be honest.
No, makes perfect sense.
Isn't there a Mass in the U.S. too? That the Christian one,
This is actually a German band. They started out in the 70s. they made a couple of albums in the 70s, and then a few in the 80s. I mean, I don't know the exact number of albums they released, but it's sort of 7, 8. I don't know. It's a whole bunch, and you see their albums all everywhere. At least here in Europe, usually the 70s stuff. I mean, no one likes them, and when they started out in the 70s, they were sort of like they were so deadpan, almost comically lame, but in a sort of entertaining way. I think I haven't heard like the first two albums, but I have some like the third and fourth, some of the later 70s ones, and it's sort of funny in a sort of glam hard rock deadpan. I mean, it's almost so bad it's good. It's slightly better than a band which you would call So Bad It's Good. And then they made, I think, they bring it out. Yeah. Metal Fighter was the album before this one, which was sort of a step up. They discovered new wave British heavy metal and became a bit more traditional metal. And then they made, I think this is actually the most common one as well, Warlaw in...
it's a cool cover.
Yeah, it is actually. Angels. Oh, 84. So, I mean, it's as Euro metal as can get. Cool album cover, the classic small German micro label. And almost every song on this album is awesome. It is so bloody catchy. And it's so cheap. I mean, at least I know in Sweden and probably most of Europe, you can find this for peanuts in the sales bin still to this day. And, in a time where all kinds of crap is overpriced, this one will not be overpriced.
That's funny.
Yeah, no, I know. I don't know if you see these albums in the US much. No. I don't think they probably didn't have any distribution over there, but over here it's always you find mass albums in all the crates in all the shops. But this one is, musically they're, of course, akin to Accept. They're not the most typical German Accept clone, but they have that sort of sing-along, catchy tracks. It's dead simple, but they make the art of making really catchy tracks with very meager means. A comparison, which isn't really a musical comparison, but sort of what I'm talking about. If you know, like Thor, the Canadian Thor,
yep.
who is totally deadpan simple but super catchy songs. This is sort of like the same thing, but in a sort of Euro metal German way. So I'll highly recommend this album and this one alone. You can leave the rest behind. The one after this one is quite all right. The one before is quite all right, but just pick up this one if you like traditional Euro metal rock. It's a really cool one.
Yeah, I think Metal Fighter was the one I had way once upon a time.
Yeah, with a lady. Yeah, that's this one.
Yeah, folks have been describing that in the chat.
Why do I have... Oh cool.
Sweet.
Yeah. No.
All right, Alan.
All right. I think it's time we hopped over and gave Belgium a little recognition with another great EP from around 83. With Aaron showed this one, I believe, on his channel very recently. So Ostergroth, Full Moon's Eyes.
That's a cool ass cover.
It is a very cool ass cover.
Amazing.
It's got the classic color scheme, and yeah, you zoom in, it's like, wow, yeah, there's actually a whole lot of
and a throbbing gristle logo. Interesting.
But yeah, one thing that's nice with this, it keeps that Euro metal tradition we're talking about tonight, where there's a lot of hooks here, very catchy stuff. This one's also a lot of the songs at least are very speedy. Full Moon's Eyes is very up tempo. Rock Fever's very up tempo. So Paris by Night, less so, but not a bad song. But it's not. Now, don't get me wrong. This isn't a speed metal record, but they're definitely picking up the pace from the standard kind of 4/4 galloping riff that we get used to thinking of with a lot of this stuff. Ostergroth did do a lot of albums. I haven't heard all of them. The ones I've heard, it seemed like each album after this kind of would slowly go down, maybe a step at a time. Like Ecstasy and Danger is good, but it's not as good as this. And then the one that came after Ecstasy and Danger is like, That's still okay, but it's not as good as Ecstasy and Danger. And at some point, I just quit going down that stairwell. I'm just like, I'm just going to stop here before I hit something I really don't want to listen to. But yeah, this is one that came out on Mausoleum. And Mausoleum's a funny label. For some people, for a long time, Mausoleum was seen as very much kind of the label that signed the leftover bands. It's like, if you're not good enough to get on Roadrunner or something, maybe Mausoleum will give you a record deal. Say, Mike, thank you very much for the super chat there that just popped up.
You're
Really
too kind, Mike.
that.
Thank you so much.
Really, really, thank you. I always liked a lot of the stuff on Mausoleum, so I was always a little defensive at this. Like, shut up, you jerks! Mausoleum's got lots of cool records. They released a lot of the stuff that there were bands that were actually doing some pretty good stuff, like this, like the Wolf, Edge of the World album. I think it was Ostrogoth. No, not Ostrogoth. Crossfire, I think, was on Mausoleum. It's like someone, needed to release those. The bigger, more recognizable labels couldn't do everything. So, yeah, I always had a soft spot for the Mausoleum catalog. Like any label, it's got its duds, but I always thought it was unfair the label got a little dissed, and I'm glad to see some of their releases, get a little more respect in the current day and age. But Dan, thoughts on Ostrogoth?
Oh yeah, I agree with someone in the chat that this is the best Mausoleum album, and Mausoleum I think is, for many examples at least, a great label. They had a huge output, and they did sign a lot of crap, but if you could compare them to like the UK label Ebony, which a lot of the albums sound the same and they are very even. Some are quite good, some are not so good, but if you look at Mausoleum, they had like amazing albums and total crap albums, but they had such a large output, so you're bound to find a lot of classics there. It is as European as it gets, both the label and of course Ostrogoth, which the first mini, and I think Ecstasy and Danger is almost flawless. The mini, all 4 tracks are great. The LP, most of it is the first LP. Most of it is amazing, and as you said, they sort of declined by each album after that. But Ostrogoth, always the band I've rooted for and put up as an example of a great forgotten Euro band.
Yep, agreed completely. Yeah, well, it won't be the last Mausoleum record I show tonight. I don't think. I think I've got at least one more in the stack. But for right now, Marty's going to... Marty, you got Belgium or Germany? Where do we head next, sir?
Italia.
Oh, okay. We haven't had an Italian one yet, I don't believe. So
I didn't get any hot garbage thrown at me for Candlemass, so I'm going to see if this slides. What is this? This is 1987.
If it's Rhapsody, yes, there's going to be a problem.
No. Dark Quarter.
Oh, no, excellent.
Epic heavy metal, epic doomish. It's an epic metal. Underproduced. Man, this band is so weird and awesome. It's like the weird half brother of Manila Road. They fit kind of in the same world, but this band is, I just can't get over how good this record is. It just is so... The singing, the English obviously isn't the first language spoken, and it adds the charm to this. The accent, the weird take on the English language, the riffs, the guitar work. This album is fantastic. This is a Shadow Kingdoms reissue. Disc 2, they re-recorded the entire album in 2012, and it sounds better produced, but the band... they didn't really change much. They stayed unique. They're very talented musicians straight out of the gate. If you go on YouTube, there's a video of them like rehearsing in a basement or something. It's so raw. It's awesome. They're just crushing. They're absolutely crushing. But Dark Quarter, this is the only Dark Quarter CD I own. I'm eventually going to score the rest of them. They don't have a vast catalog. They only have a handful of records, but what I've heard from the catalog, it's all quality. So if you've never heard this band, it's weird, epic, heavy metal. I don't know of very many Italian bands. I guess you could get into Death SS and stuff like that. Bands I have not heard. And, but this band stands out as something kind of special in Europe. No one really sounds like them. So cheers for them for that. And they're still kind of, what was their last record? The last record they put out was in 2020.
Not too long ago, yeah.
It's not too long ago. So I mean, they're a long-running band, staying true to their roots and their unique take on heavy metal. Very cool stuff. Very good addition to Europe for sure.
Yeah,
amazing.
I just played it last night.
Right on.
I was sitting here reading Robert Howard, an old Conan anthology, and listening to Dark Quarter, and yes, I felt very epic.
Yep.
But Dan, what would you recommend for folks to follow up, for like Marty who wants to explore more of the Dark Quarter catalog? Because their albums can sound pretty different from one another. Where should folks go after that one?
I would not recommend the second one, which is basically, I mean, if it's the same lineup and everything, and it should be amazing. But unfortunately, it sounds a bit like leftovers from the first album.
It's funny because if you look at the Metal Archives, it's got one review, 97%. It's the highest reviewed.
Review.
Yeah, one review. Mm-hmm. And there's not, this band isn't very popular. They each have like 1 or 2 reviews each. So.
I mean, the first one is so flawless. It's one of those bands who's living under the oak of their debut album. And it's, I mean, it's flawless. It's a 10 out of 10 album. I mean, maybe the production, you can argue about the production. And interestingly about the re-recording is, I think maybe the only time when I heard a full re-recording of a classic album, which is basically just as good. And there are some differences as well. They sort of redid, especially on the opening track, Red Hot Gloves. It sounds very different, and it's a new, amazing version. I mean, the whole album has little bits and pieces, which they changed, but in a good way. I mean, you can't say it's better, but the production is great, and they somehow weirdly managed to do a great re-recording of it. If I were to pick recommend an album to follow up with, it would be an album with a different band, which sounded like their second album should have sounded like, which was a band called Tegen Hart, an Italian band who released an album in 1990. Tegen Hart. I have it reviewed on my site, and I mean, you can just find the sounds anywhere, I guess. But it's an amazing Italian band, very epic and unique. Nice. The second album that's Dark Quarter never made.
Right on. And what about, I've heard some like later shit that it sounds a lot more epic, but it's still really good. It's like what I heard, I saw in like a newer video. I'm like, man, this song rules. It's put together really well.
Yeah, I saw them live for the third time, I think I saw them live this winter in a festival down in Gothenburg, and they're still amazing live, but they became more progressive. It's more like prog metal, not the sort of weird time changey stuff, but sort of epic prog stuff. And I mean, if you're into that, I guess it's great. I haven't been buying a lot of their later stuff, but they're still an amazing, talented band. When they went more into this progressive style, they sort of lost me personally, but that's just personal tastes.
Yeah, I'd agree on the second album. I want to like it so bad, but it feels a little short. It feels like it's just, there's not enough songs there. The production's a lot better than the debut, but in a way it almost works against the album. It sounds almost too clean at times. It's like, but this doesn't sound like it's dug out of a Etruscan grave. It sounds a little too clean. You needed to maybe dirty it back up a little bit. Not a bad album, but yeah, it always feels like it leaves you wanting a little bit more.
And I think you could say, location. I mean, you're tucked away from. So what like we were talking about Kawir the other day. The Greek scene just seems so isolated back in the 90s when the black metal stuff was happening, and there were elements of the Scandinavian stuff, but it was just they had their own sound. Their very unique way of playing melody and writing riffs. It just was so separated from what was happening in Scandinavia. In Italy, I mean, even though America is so freaking huge, Italy isn't that far away from those countries, but it's still very isolated, especially back in the 80s when this stuff was coming out. There was no internet to dial up and be streaming, your favorites. You had to write letters. You had to actually work to communicate with other bands and hear other bands' demos and stuff. You just couldn't walk into the Walmart and buy a record,
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, as Ryan was saying here, yeah, Italy always had a very cool and kind of unique scene, even amongst European countries.
Yep.
I'm almost a completist collector of 80s Italian metal. It's my favorite European scene, I think, after possibly classic new wave metal stuff, of course. But I mean, Italian metal to me, I'm just a diehard fan and collector.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Dan, you're back. I'm gonna go use the little boys' room, and I'll meet you back here in a minute.
Okay. I was thinking about segueing into a different Italian band, but then I realized there's a lot of really classic other Euro stuff. So I'm going to start with a trio of the most, what I consider, at least in my head, the ultra super typical archetypical Euro metal sound. And it's a trio of albums and mini albums from Germany, Holland, and Belgium, respectively. And we're going to start with the Belgian one, which is this beautiful, beautiful mini album by a band called Trial. Scream for Mercy. It's been reissued now. And I think that this is one of the things that makes it so great, apart from the amazing lineup shot. Where's my camera? There. You can just tell that these guys do perfect Euro metal with it look like that. And the style is it's very accept, but it's not the most cloney in that style. They opening up with like an epic intro, Victims of This Earth, and then Lord of Darkness. It's like the perfect Euro speed metal opener, and that's when it hits you. The vocalist, he has this amazing vocal style, which I love. When a vocalist sounds like he's singing through his teeth, like this, it sounds really mean. That's the normal style that metal vocals are supposed to sound like. Always in my head, and this is the perfect example of that. I just love the way, and he sort of combines it with this really hoarse, or quite hoarse, gravelly voice as well. And it's a mini album. Full of really great traditional heavy metal, and the color scheme on this sleeve. It's haunting, and it's speedy, and it's cocky, and to me, if you want to just see my definition of what is Euro metal, this is sort of like my go-to album. I'll listen to Trial, Scream for Mercy. So cool. Have you heard it, guys?
I do not know that one. I've heard the name, but I've never heard it.
Yeah.
So I'll have to.
It's been reissued. Probably High Roller, that's like everything else, but I'm not sure. But it's been reissued.
When in doubt, guess High Roller, and you're right 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll have to check that one out. I've heard the name
from
but
Belgium.
never did check it out. Cool.
All right, Alan.
All right. I want to continue working around the continent a little bit. I don't think we've mentioned Finland yet. Finland, of course, is mostly now associated with their 90s death metal scene. They didn't have a ton of metal bands in the 80s, but they had a couple. Probably the most recognizable one, and another one that Aaron showed us over on his channel very recently, was Oz. I'm picking this one. So EP, Fire, Turn the Cross, Upside Down, obviously released around the Fire in the Brain albums, similar cover shot, but now the candle's all burned out. It's a 3-track, 12-inch EP. 2 of the tracks are from the album. You've got Gambler and Searchlights, both killer tracks. It's a killer album. I don't need to talk about it in detail. Go watch Aaron's recent video. Is it better than I could? But the reason you get this, and the reason I pulled this one to show, is the song on the other side was a non-LP track, Turn the Cross, Upside Down.
Yes, please do.
This is one of and this is not hyperbole. I want people to understand. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just trying to hype it. I'm not trying to be silly. This is one of the definitive heavy metal songs that came out of Europe during the 1980s. It is one of the best. It has everything you could want. It's got an amazing chorus. It's heavy. It's fierce. Oz was a band at this point in Oz's career. They had, again, that kind of tough, gritty, nasty, snarly kind of sound to them. A little more aggressive. It's a little more in your face than a lot of the other bands we've talked about tonight. And this song, if you wanted to put together, one of those, best of Euro metal of the 80s kind of, compilations that you would used to buy at, gas stations for $4.99 on cassette, this should be the first song that you put on it. There's no way this song is not featured. There's no way it's not on that list. Incredible track, and even amongst all the cool songs they did at this point in their career, that song just, all their other stuff is way up here, and that song's off the top of the chart and through the roof, and it's a small flock of birds are running into it because it's that much better. Got to have that one song. If you have nothing else by Oz, you got to get that. This is the second copy of it I've owned, and I've told this story before, but if folks have missed it, the first time I won a copy of this on eBay, the genius who was selling it to me was worried that there was a slight edge warp and that I might leave him negative feedback or send it back. So he decided to fix that by ironing the record. And he completely erased every groove off the vinyl. Yeah,
that's kind of funny. It's actually kind of funny. So stupid,
I can now that I have a copy of it, I can laugh about it. But boy, for several months there, while I was still trying to track down a second copy, it was not
fixed
funny.
it.
Do you still have that copy?
I think I still. He did send it to me. He it didn't get shipped. It didn't get shipped. I sent him like hey, remember me? I gave you money for a record.
Oh, the
irony. He explained. He sent an email. He was very apologetic. He explained what he did. He says I want to send you the record anyway because the cover's very nice, and I'm obviously going to refund all your money, all the shipping, everything. And he did. I think I still have the cover. I don't know if I have the vinyl anymore. It might be buried in one of those random boxes of things, because I just I pinned it to the wall in my bedroom, just to taunt me when I'd lay there at night. Until
Frank said, "Did it take out the warp?"
Yes, it did, Frank. It was perfectly fucking flat. Absolutely, it took out the warp and all the music and everything else too. Wow. You put that needle on and it made a beeline right for the center spoke of your turntable.
Crazy. What the fuck was he thinking?
He really wanted those. He didn't want to have to return those $33 if I left him negative feedback or something. So yeah, he's like, I got the perfect solution to that. Son of a bitch. So there you go. Get yourself a copy that has grooves still intact, and enjoy one of the finest metal songs ever made.
Great band, even better, best song. And as someone mentioned in the chat as well, I guess most people are aware who's holding the skull on the front sleeve.
Yes, but
Corthon.
Please do.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's Corthon. Who's actually buried about 500 meters from where I'm sitting, incidentally. But yeah,
I'll be dogged. Interesting.
Yeah.
But so yes, the hand of Bathory there holding the skull for folks.
Yep.
He's the only one in the circle that could afford a sweet gauntlet, apparently. Yep.
All right, Marty. What's your country of choice this time?
I'm going back to Germany. I have a lot of Germany here.
Cool.
Dan showed Avenger. I couldn't let it go with, Rage is kind of one of those anomalous bands that they could fit in speed metal. They could fit in thrash, but man, they just never really fit in any of them for me, especially when you start getting to this record. I mean, you got the Don't Fear the Winter. It's such a catchy sing-along chorus. Germans were really good at that anyway, but it's just, there's a lot more melody going on here, and PV is just such an amazing songwriter. It's just a band that people either love or hate, and if you do love them, they have like over getting close to 30 releases at this point. It's a bit excessive, but none of them straight up suck. I mean, there's some that are okay. You know, I could live without the symphony shit, but you know, this early stuff, especially Perfect Man, is where things really kind of start to congeal a bit into what Rage would be moving forward. It wasn't until like Trapped and The Missing Link that they really got amazing for me. The riffs started getting way better. But you know, German heavy metal in my mind, with, you know, some speed and thrash leanings here and there. It's kind of one of those transitional bands. But man, I love this stuff.
Mhm.
It's so good. They're such a strong band. Secrets in a Weird World. A lot of people show that as a favorite, and that's one that I don't know. I struggle to click with that one. I like a lot of it, but the songs are kind of complex and unneeded. The songs were a little too busy for me. But anyway, this early stuff is great. Awesome band. I love Rage. I don't have all their stuff, but I'm working at it. I've got over half.
It
Maybe
takes a while. There's
it takes a while. But the later stuff starts turning up cheaply here and there because there's so much of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. I mean, it's I guess it's a very typical European band. The way you said, Marty, that it's not speed, it's not thrash, it's this sort of power metallish, but it falls sort of like in between this speed power thrash genre, and it's definitely a very typical European metal band.
yeah, and you know, Peavy's vocals were a big part of that loose fitting. You know, you can't really pay. He can sing, he can kind of shout, he can scream, he kind of fills every bill. You know.
Yeah, it's one of those bands which you sort of I tend to use to compare other bands with, and that's sort of gray zone of power speed trash. You know, stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Rage.
Yeah.
I mean, I have those two records and a few others, but I don't listen to them that much. But you know, it's such a distinct classic European power speed trash sound. So it's good for comparing other bands with.
If you don't have Trapped, get that. That's my favorite. The riffs and the songwriting on that one are so good. So
Release year?
Good. I can look it up real
Trapped
quick.
is around 92.
Still
I'll let you double check
not
that, Marty.
Falling off the edge of the world then, I guess. Yeah.
We got, holy crap, they have so many releases. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It takes a while. I want to say 92. We'll see how
92,
close.
you're right. 92.
Okay. Well, there's still hope then. So Trapped.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a great record. The riffs are great. The songs are well written. It's great. Okay, Dan, you're back. Man, I'm running out. It might be you guys talking here for a while, so that's good. I'll monitor the chat.
All good.
Yeah, I was talking about. I'm going to go through three, for me, very defining Euro metal albums. I talked about Trial from Belgium last round. I'm going to go. Yeah, let's go Germany now. And I'm going to go with this amazing little mini with a band called Metal Sword.
I'm sorry, Dan. There we go.
Yeah. Now I can see myself.
I was chatting I was in the chat. I can't multitask, apparently.
You had one job, Marty.
I know. Thought you had my back, man.
I was looking at the Metal Sword.
Right.
Yeah, Metal Sword was a German band. They only made this mini album. I think they had like a really rare track on some local compilation in 83. This one was released in 85. That compilation from 83 it's a big one just for that one Metal Sword song, but it's going to be impossible to find because of its title. The title of that compilation is Number One. So try Googling that.
Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. No, not going to happen. But anyway, Metal Sword is very much a classic Euro metal and German metal album. And I mean, the sleeve is amazing.
It's great art.
Yeah. I mean, harder than steel. I mean, what? No comment. And the lineup shot is amazing. This guy looks so fucking evil.
That guy's dressed up like the Hamburglar on the far left.
Yeah, that's heavy metal Hamburger.
I was going to say
He's done
Beetlejuice,
time.
but
He's
yours
done
is
time in
funnier.
hamburger jail for sure.
Oh yeah, and they stand in a crypt as well. I mean, how cool is that? And I mean, every song on this one is great. I mean, they start off with like "Take Off," which is sort of like speedy, almost punky Motorhead Discharge German speed. Storm Rider is an amazing, epic fist in the air song, and then we have the track "The Exorcist," which is quite an intricate track, a long, intricate track, which is really fucking dark. And I mean, the B-side is amazing as well. I mean, "March for the Damned" is an amazing epic track. And they finish with, and here's where I think a certain cult Japanese band got the idea for their track. They finished with "Disco is fuck." Yes, which is true.
No. Let's not get crazy here. Come on, ABBA. Come on.
ABBA is not disco. No. ABBA is
Dancing Queen is kind of disco.
Yeah,
They crossed over on that one.
Marty, you want to get yourself out of the hole? First thing you got to do is put down the shovel.
Yep.
ABBA is epic disco. Yeah.
Yep.
No, but anyway, this is an album I really love. I think when I checked it out on not Metal Treasures, Metal Encyclopedia. I did read quite a few negative reviews on it, or lukewarm reviews. And to me, it's one of those albums which you can test people with, and if they don't like it, they're not metal in my mind. I mean, I think it is so damn metal, straight up. I think it's perfect. Mean vocals, it's got it all. Yeah. So did anyone of you hear it?
I have not heard that one, and was interested. It's also, you finally showed one that Aaron, the metal theologian, doesn't own. So yes, you're definitely getting into that higher stratosphere here and leaving us behind.
It's not super rare. I mean, it's not a big rarity. It's actually the second Wishbone Records release for the night. The first one was the Avenger album.
The Avengers, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's been reissued as well, I'm pretty sure. But all albums in the world have been reissued by now. But, I mean, it was quite recently, I think.
It's getting hard to find ones that haven't been reissued.
Oh, yeah. Maybe Gotham City.
Yeah. There's a bootleg
the last
for all
band.
of them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I noticed. Yeah, from this year. But still, maybe the last metal band to ever be reissued.
All right, Alan.
All right, I'm going to contribute to the German team's score with this
don't
one.
fuck me here. Don't fuck me here, Alan.
I'm not.
Okay, good. Because I'm running out of steam here, and I got to show this one.
I am 99.9% sure you're safe on this one. But yeah, this band, love. They did 2 albums and an EP, and I love all their stuff, and nobody talks about them. So it's a very Alan kind of thing to show. But it is Brainfever. This is their second album, Face to Face. Not going to claim it's the best cover ever made, but it is better than the first one, which basically just shows a naked dude's butt while he's looking up at the moon or something.
Is it a dude?
On the first one, is it a dude? Is it a woman?
I'm going to go check.
I haven't pulled it off the show. I always, because you mostly just see it from behind, and it's just like, here's a butt.
Is that the blue cover? I think I remember that one.
It's got
blue.
Like
it's like airbrush, like an airbrush silver dude.
And kind of some silvery highlights.
Silvery buttocks.
Looks like a dude, yeah.
That's the one. Yep. Yeah. So Brainfever is scoring 0 points for cover art, but they're scoring maximum points for just really cool heavy metal. They had a great vocalist. He has like a really good kind of mid-range voice. They had like a very good kind of chug to their music, not in like a groove metal way, of course. Way too early for that. This is 1986, but just having these heavy riffs that could just really kind of thunder along with the music. Both albums are fantastic. They made an EP called You, Again, have fun Googling the title YOU.
Oh, yeah.
But the EP is really cool as well. So you really can't go wrong with any of the Brain Fever material. Lots of good ones on this, like Blackjack. The closing track, though, is the real gem on here. Caught by the Fire. The best Brain Fever tracks just have these insanely catchy choruses.
Oh, yeah.
It's the kind of thing I will play it once and I will sing it in the shower for a week. And my wife will ask me, Kellen, if you're watching, you can identify with this phenomenon. We know you can. But yeah, just another one of these, great bands. This one's on Belaphon. I'm pretty sure the first album was on Mausoleum. But
I think Belaphon is just a distributor. It's not. Yeah, well, it's sort of the label, but
okay, yeah, actually, you're right. I'll flip it over here. Yeah, it says Bacillus.
Wait.
Bacillus Records. I don't know. We don't know what to make of that, but yes, if you like, if you want something, again, it's not too lightweight, not too thrashy. It kind of sits in the pocket really nicely. Does everything you want, your mid '80s metal to do when you're not looking for anything more aggressive. Fantastic band. I love this band. Wish they had done more. Wish people talked about them more. Check out Germany's Brain Fever.
Yeah. So it's a cool band. Actually, I think that second one, I haven't come back to it in years. I love the first album. The first album I think I picked up almost around the time it was released. One of those really early, cool. Yeah, or I mean maybe second half of the 80s, like in 87 or something. And I love it. They had a track on Speed Kills 2, the classic compilation. Which was
okay. I don't have Volume 2, so I didn't know that.
I was wondering, is this song called Breakout? No, that might be Mania. I might be confusing my German bands. I don't know. Brain Fever seems really familiar to me, but I have not heard either of those records. So
yeah, but I think the first Mania, the first album is amazing. The second one I need to get back to now that you talked about it, Alan. So I'm going to definitely do a respin of that one. But I think my favorite is the You mini album. They have a new vocalist there, and all 4 songs are amazing. Like a track like Hoist Up the Sails, my God.
Yep.
It's, like you said, I mean, the harmonies in this band is amazing. It's like, Halloween without the happy bouncing pumpkins. Thank you.
Yeah, just as much insane catchiness with with 100% less produce involved.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, a lot of folks cite the UEP as their favorite out of the 3 releases. And I love I probably play the first album more too. There's just so many songs on that I love. I sometimes will forget how good this one is when I go back and replay. It's just like, damn, why am I not playing this one too? Great stuff. Oh, and Marty, the track on the compilation is just called Brain Fever on Speed Kills 2. Yep, the mayhem continues.
True. Okay.
Yeah,
I know I heard them. I heard them from somewhere.
Yep. They had a they did a 7-inch single too, which I've never been able to get a copy of.
Me neither.
I've been then I've been embarrassed at the bids I've entered a couple of times and just get blown out of the water on that.
No.
But maybe someday.
Big hole in the collection.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll sit and stew about that while Marty shows us another good one.
Well, let's talk about produce and happy flying pumpkins, because this year, whether you like the
HeavyMetallurgy.com LLC trademark is contractually obligated to mention Halloween at least once every 7 calendar working
and all
days.
Those of you that are playing the drinking game, just time to drink, because this album single-handedly kind of put the final nail in the coffin to the old style of 80s heavy metal and ushered in a new era, which is still very vibrant today. And that is this album, Keeper of the 7 Keys Part 1, from a speed metal band to a power metal band. I mean, this is the blueprint for what Europe so happily followed after. There's still a few bands that play in the old school style, but this here was the new. You got the super intense riffs, the amazing vocals, operatic vocal style of Michael Kiska. I don't know, man. Say what you want. Yeah, there's some happy crap on here, And this band has always had their share of happy crap, but the good solid songs like Twilight of the Gods, I'm Alive, there's some great stuff on here. They're a great band. They still are to this day a great band, and they have changed the face of not German, but European heavy metal in general. It kept it relevant. It kept it going forward. And although it's kind of stuck in this rut, but we're not going to talk about that too much, but say what you want. I know it's Alan, one of his ultimate favorite heavy metal records, and it's right up there for me. And the fact that my kid likes it, he's 13, man, that gives me hope. It gives me hope. But that is a very transitional record, and it changed the face of heavy metal in Europe for sure.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You can't deny that. You can't deny
classic European classic power metal album. As you said, it sort of defined the later meaning of power metal as opposed to sort of US almost thrash phenomenon to this sort of epic melodic thing.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. After Euro metal's never quite the same after that album takes off.
For better or worse, but
yeah, exactly. And that's
everything
what
has to change over time. Change is going to happen, and if you got a lot of good metal that came after that too, just in a different direction.
That's
Walls of
1987.
Walls of Jericho is always going to be the Halloween album for me. I mean,
Fantastic.
I bought that once just a few months before Keeper of the Seven Keys came out. So I was in Walls of Jericho heaven for like a few months, and this one came out, and this is almost as good. Different kind of vocals.
Yep.
Oh, comic characters on the back sleeve. Okay.
Yep.
And then I discovered Slayer and Creator and no, but.
But the speed metal era of Halloween, I mean, the EPs, the self-titled, and Judas, I mean, God, you just cannot deny how great that shit is. So good. So good. But yeah, Dan, you're up.
I'm up again. Yeah. I'm talking about doing a trio of my three most defining sort of semi-underground Euro metal releases. I was talking about Trial, and then it had Metal Sword from Germany. It's time for a Dutch band, and this band is so cool. I mean, the sleeve and everything. And I know a lot of Dutch people love this band, and it is a very sad band. It's Sad Iron.
Nice. Folks were asking for this in the chat earlier.
They mentioned it earlier, yeah.
Oh yeah, it is. It's one of those. It's one of those albums which, when I sort of rediscovered 80s metal in the late 90s, there's a dozen or two albums which I picked up around that era, and this is one of those which really steered my way forward into diving deeper into classic or forgotten Euro metal. And I mean, the sleeve, it's funny, but I like the color scheme. The logo is weird, and it's iron with tears. I think a Sad Iron, isn't that like sort of iron you iron out your clothes with or something?
Or iron out an Oz record, Sad Iron. Alan was sad anyway.
That iron made me very sad. Too soon, Marty. Too soon.
Yeah, well, I was staying on a team here.
I can just see this fucking guy with the ironing board out that record. I'm going to fix this son of a bitch real good. This guy.
He'll be so happy he won't want any of his money back. He won't.
Positive eBay thing right here. Yeah.
100% seller rating.
Where'd all the grooves go? Are those important? Anyway, sorry, Dan.
That's important. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was very much on topic since we're talking about Sad Irons. Concerning the actual band, they had a split album before this one, which is sort of like basic hard rock stuff. But this LP or mini, I don't know, it's 7 songs. Is that a mini album or an LP? It's, to me, It's always sort of fell in between. But there's lots of diversity on this LP. I think each song is unique. I mean, the Speedy Demon's Night and Prisoners is a perfect Eurospeed song. And then you have like the ultimate anthem, We All Praise the Devil. He is so fine. And I mean, it's such an amazing song. I mean, it's corny, but it's perfect. I mean, the vocals are so cool. They sound 100% European. You will never in your life find a contemporary US band or a modern band sounding like this.
That Simon is right. That demon looks like the same demon on Morbid Visions. Same artist? I want no.
Yeah,
Except
yeah. Good point, actually. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it's true. Probably not the same artist.
Probably not.
No.
That demon there seems a little happier. He doesn't seem as sad as the title should suggest. Anyway.
No, but it's a style defining Mini from Holland, which I really adore. They recorded another album, a full length called The Antichrist, which was finally reissued a couple of years ago. And it's a really great one as well. It's a bit more speed metal. It's more almost only fast tracks on it, but it's a really cool one as well. But I think this one holds the prize as their most diverse album. And I mean, if you don't like this one, you don't like Euro metal. Basically, it's I love it. Yeah.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, that other Sad Iron album, The Antichrist, that was one of the first things I think I discovered when I stumbled into the Corroseum, because Rob Preston, big U.S. collector, he's been on the site forever as Doomed Planet. He ran Doomed Planet Records for a while, and I think because he had circulated some recordings of that before it got an official press, so that some longtime fans could actually hear the Antichrist.
I remember
recording.
that copy that was circulating before it was pretty bad sounding. So when it finally came out on vinyl, it was so cool, because that's when it actually sounded good to me. Because I remember I heard Rob's version, or the version that has circulated, and I was sort of disappointed by it. But when it finally came out on vinyl, it grew a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it was Rob's. I don't know.
No,
if
of course not.
He just was making it available, so folks had a chance to hear it. Just like it was a good example for me. Like one of the first things I noticed on Corroseum was just like, holy shit, this is a rabbit hole that's going to go deep. Okay, let's go. That was the kind of stuff. You went to other metal forums at the time, and people were talking about the John Arch Fates Warning albums for like the third time in the past 4 months. And it's like, those are great albums, but we've kind of talked those to death. And I go to this side, and it's just like, there's another really Sad Iron album, and I can listen to part of it here. And I think I better bookmark this site. Okay. It is my turn. So let's circle back to Sweden. I'll get to some more countries, but gotta cut back through Sweden. They put out a lot of great metal in the 80s. This is one from 1984. A lot of people will argue that's one of the best years for heavy metal releases ever. And this one was on a pretty big label, EMI. So not a private press or anything.
No, it's an unlimited supply.
Absolutely. It's all over.
There is no reason why. Anyway.
It's a band called Proud with an album called Fire Breaks the Dawn.
Yes.
Which that's a epic as fuck title for a record.
But a stupid band name.
Maybe not the best band name. The cover is very kind of red. But it's EMI is in charge, so we're probably lucky it's as good as it is. But still, that album title, that's a thing. Great Swedish metal. It once again, it has those big guitar melodies. It's got those soaring kind of vocals. It's got some of the fantasy and even a little bit of science fiction worked in here with like a starfighter. We're not just swinging battle axes around. We can fly around and pew 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 shoot things with laser guns. But the big track on here is, and I'm trying to get the vinyl out of the way. The big track is the second one. It's called Echoes from the Past. This is track number 2 that we put on our compilation of the 10 most Euro metal songs of all time. You start with Turn the Cross, Upside Down by Oz, and you follow it right up with Echoes of the Past by Proud off Fire Breaks the Dawn. This album for me was a blind buy back in the pre-eBay days. Someone, it was probably Al Spremo in New York, had this on his vinyl, just set sale mail order list. And he always had, like a little blurb about them, but just the fact it was, Proud and called Fire Breaks the Dawn. I was already pretty much ready to pay money for it just based on the title of the album. Just like, that's got to
take my money.
Yeah, very much so. Just like, here, just cram it in the envelope and put some stamps on it. But, Alan, also, gave me, he's like, this is a pretty fucking amazing record, Swedish Steel. I'm just like, and at the time it was probably like $18. A lot of Al stuff, was very reasonably priced, especially in the US. You're not going to find this stuff, at a random record show in the United States in 1994. It's just not there. But Al would get a lot of this stuff from Europe, and a lot of it was under $20 a piece. I'm just like, I don't know what that sounds like, but I want to find out. And I'm so glad I did, because killer album. The only other funny thing I can say about this is for folks that used to be on the old Metal Maniacs chat forum back in the late 90s before it crashed. It was the only site on earth that crashed at Y2K.
Yeah.
And went offline for a while.
It's fucked up.
Before that happened, they had a very good chat community. After they got it back online in 2000, it unfortunately kind of became troll haven and was never quite the same.
No. It all moved to Lapland at that point.
All the nice folks who got kind of tried to log on January 1st, 2000 and realized, oh shit, my lifeline to metal's gone. We all, gravitated over to a site called Lapland Metal. But anyway, one random day on the Metal Maniacs forum, logged on, and some new guy, was there with the screen name of Wizard of Magma, which is, I was like,
I remember him.
That's a bitching cool handle. And his very first post on Metal Maniacs forum was, anybody remember this band called Proud and who made an album back in Sweden? I'm just like, I'm going to like this guy. And so I quickly was just like, I know that fucking album.
I remember him.
The best, man.
Yep.
And he's like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody actually responded to this. I love that album too. I'm just like, I love that album too. And it just like turned into Steel Magnolias with both of us crying and gushing over the Proud album, but digitally. But yes, Wizard of Magma. Chris, I actually met him a few times when I lived in North Carolina. Super nice guy, really good knowledge of 80s metal. Good musician too. He played in a lot of local bands around the Eastern North Carolina scene. So Chris, if by chance you're out there watching, cheers. It's been far too long. Get in touch. Let me know how you're doing, man. So yes, we bonded over Fire Breaks the Dawn.
Yeah, it's I would perhaps one of the most, if not the most underrated 80s Swedish 80s metal albums, I think. But it looks so inconspicuous.
Yeah,
I mean,
it does.
It's a beautiful band photo, but it doesn't stick out that much. I mean, it's a beautiful sleeve and everything, but maybe not in an 80s metal way. And they never. I mean, there are other bands which are more famous Swedish metal stuff. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't want to name and shame anything, but I think that one is way better than so many other bands from Sweden. I would even go so far as say it's one of the handful of full LP album releases from Sweden, which is great because our strengths always lied in singles and demos.
Mm-hmm.
But that one is great.
Yeah, I'd agree. And you're right, though. I mean, while it's, if you don't know what it is and you're looking at it, it does. The name Proud doesn't catch your eye right away. The band cover, a lot of folks will look and be like, "Is this going to be some kind of later era Europe thing?"
Yeah.
And it's on EMI, which also kind of like, oh, it's not a private press thing. Oh, they look kind of like they're. Is this going to be like one of the bad TNT albums? So I get why some people maybe took a pass on it.
But it sounds very Scandinavian. It sounds very Swedish.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not as heavy as Gotham City, but it's heavier than Europe. So I mean, it's and it's very sort of good, highbrow, real, good, heavy melodic Swedish metal.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm up. Okay. This is a very poser poll here because I was getting a little desperate, and I don't know how
If it
influential.
rings with Slammer Mall, I will have to remove you from the screen in
No.
deference to Dan. I'm just
No,
saying.
it has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
It's like 5 degrees of scorpions. And S. Craig Zoller sent me this CD. It's a good CD. It's a fun CD. It's heavy metal, but this early stuff, this came out in 83, I think, where it mixes with a bit of hard rock, and that's Michael Schenker Group with Built to Destroy.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
You know, this is a solid record. It's got a little bit of a commercial vibe to it, a little bit of a hard rock vibe to it, but those early 80s, that's kind of what I think the heavy metal thing was. It had a bit of heavy metal, it had a bit of hard rock in it. It just did.
mhm.
You know, obviously Schenker came from the Scorpions. He was on there for a minute. He's brother of a couple of those dudes, one of those dudes. This is solid. I have only spun it twice, so I'm a poser for showing it, but I didn't know if anybody else here would, so I figured I'd throw it in there. And there were some people that were calling for MSG in the chat, so it worked out in my favor. But yeah, Built to Destroy, 83 on the Ever Metal Chrysalis label. Home
Was it
of
Billy Joel on Chrysalis?
yeah, well, yeah, Pat Benatar was on Chrysalis, and so was
Armored Saint was
Armored
on
Saint and UFO.
Yep.
So there you go.
Wow.
Which makes
Chrysalis
sense
showed
because
us.
Schenker came from, you know, he's in UFO for a while too. So
Yeah, we laughed at Chrysalis, but Chrysalis showed us.
yeah, well,
Mhm.
you know, I
Fuck
always
you
thought,
guys,
I
we got
always
Armored
thought
Saint.
them as the fucking Pat Benatar label, which Pat Benatar rules too, but in a different way. She's 70 years old. Can you believe that? She's still kicking ass. Anyway, Dan, you're back. Sorry,
No,
sorry
oh,
for the
yeah.
MSG.
No. I don't think I've heard that particular MSG record, but I mean that's like what's the third or fourth album or something like that.
Yeah, this is Gary Barden on vocals. I don't know who the hell that even is, but it was like he returns to the band. I was reading the Wikipedia thing. Returns, so he must have been a big deal. I don't know. It's good. It's a solid record.
Yeah, I think I have like one or two earlier ones, which was sort of like a German new wave British metal style. So which I remember as good. It's one of those albums where I haven't listened to them in a couple of years, but the early stuff was really great as far as I remember.
And I mean, all Schenker, I mean, like you were talking earlier with Scorpions, Schenker is one of those early institutions. How many people in these other bands we're talking about tonight picked up the guitar for the first time after listening to a UFO album with Michael Schenker on it?
Yep.
I bet a lot. Huge influence on that whole generation of guitar players.
So yep, I've got one more after this. So you guys can keep going. I anticipate to run out quick, and I'll moderate the chat while you guys go back and forth. I'll just sit here and look pretty. Dan, you're up.
I'm up, and I'm looking for the record I was supposed to talk about, and where the hell did I put it? So I'm gonna go.
It's not gonna be as cult as Michael fucking Schenker. Let me just say
no,
that right now.
No, typical. Okay, I'll do a different one then. We haven't had a French album yet.
We have not.
We have not. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because French metal is French metal. No, I actually, this was when I was picking out albums for this show. I noticed I had too many German, Belgian, Hot Dutch albums. So I was thinking, oh well, Spain, France, and I ended up with something that's not. It's a bit different from some of the other albums I picked up, but this is very European, and it's an obscure one. But the most embarrassing thing about this one is. This is like peeing your pants on public TV, but it's not an original. I'm sorry. It's a reissue from 20 years ago or 23 years ago. I'm sorry. It's a
poser.
It's a really cool. It's a really good one.
Poser.
Yeah, I'm a poser. Good night. The color is awful because the original has this amazing black and white, really cheapo sleeve. But anyway, this is Lost from France. It was reissued in 2000 by Cult Metal Classics. I think it's one of the first Cult Metal Classics releases, if not the first, or one of the first anyway. It's a French band, and it's a French epic metal band. And it's one of those albums where I'm surprised that not more people talk about, because epic metal is one of those genres which everyone loves, and everyone has their own favorite top lists of 80s epic metal or 90s epic metal or 2000 epic metal albums, but you never see someone mentioning this one too often. And it's the thing that I think makes it sort of European in style is because it's very homebrewed. It's very much private pressing in sound and performance. I guess you could describe them as, imagine like a really crummy German Gamma Records band trying to do like Lordian Guard. I mean, it's an impossible. It's like mixing, I don't know, impossible things, but at least on a few occasions. But it's a very solemn album.
Lordian Guard, would that be like the epic metal bedroom band? You know, like black metal's got a bunch of bedroom bands. Would Lordian Guard kind of be the bedroom of epic metal? I would think.
Oh yeah, and also one of the greatest bands in that.
Yeah, man, I struggle with it. It's a little too raw for me. And I don't like her vocals that much.
I almost like them more than Warlord.
Really?
We're going to go on a tangent here. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, I
only discovered them a few years ago, but yeah, we'll get back to that discussion on a different street.
Right on. Yep, you're coming back. You're hooked now. We're gonna keep you coming back for other stuff, but go for it.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, Lost. Anyway, Lost. I mean, it's a very solemn record that's also quite primitive, and it's so far away from any sort of rock you, fists in the air, bang your head. Yeah, this is no more like waiting for death, waiting for death. I mean, it is so amazingly sad and depressing in a really cool way. It's catchy, it's unique, it's something that you very seldom hear outside of Europe, where they're not trying to rock the world or anything. It's very focused album, and primitive in all the right ways. There's some demo bonus material on this one with female vocals, which is awesome. So that's a good argument for, I mean, if you're not hunting down the $200-300 or euro original, you can probably find this for, well, it might be a bit expensive now that it's 23 years old, but I mean, it's a really cool one if you not need your metal or epic metal polished. I mean, we're not talking, it's not like Warlord, Manila Road, Virgin Steel epic, but it has those qualities in it, I think. So yeah, it's a highly recommended French metal album, which doesn't sound particularly French, but sounds very European in a very unique way.
Yeah, cool one. Yeah.
Do you like it? Have you heard it, Alan?
Been a long time. I have not pulled that one. Yeah, I don't. I have it on the just MP3s. Haven't pulled it up to listen to in a long time. But yeah, and yeah, having the reissue of that is absolutely acceptable because
sure, yeah, absolutely.
That's a hideous one to try to track down and pay for.
Yeah.
All right, Alan, I'll be right back.
All right. I also had a French one queued up, so we'll make sure France gets its due here. And yeah, French metal, when you said that, even some folks in the chat were a bit like, yeah, okay. There's obviously some, sortilege is always the go-to for most folks, for French metal. It's like, oh yes, I'm very well-rounded. I know French metal. I have a sortilege album. Good for you.
And it's not even close to being one of the best bands. It's great bands, but it's not on my top 5 or even 10.
Yeah, I agree. France, has some good ones. One I don't think if anyone ever heard anyone on YouTube mention this band before or show this album. So here we go. This was another kind of blind buy because I thought the name was cool back in the pre eBay days. It is Steel Angel, and the angels were made of steel. Shut up and take my money right there. That's all I need to hear.
I picked that one out as well.
I thought that's what you were going to show.
Yeah.
That's was like, crap, he beat me to my France representation.
Now I don't have to do it. Now we can pick something else. So that's good.
Yes, we can move on to other territories. Yeah. But this is on the Devil's label, which had several kind of cool releases. I don't have very many. They've always been kind of hard to find, at least over here in the States. You don't see the Devil's albums very much. But again, with French metal, you never quite know what you're going to get when you open that can. But this one is surprisingly good. It doesn't feel as French as some other things. For starters, they sing in English, even though it's heavily accented. And that does work better for me. As a dumb American, French bands have a tendency to sing in French. It doesn't ruin the music for me or anything, but it does. There's a little disconnect because I have no idea what the heck they're saying. They could be singing "Eat sausages at Joe's" for all I know, and having them sing in American language, it helps a little bit, because then I have a better sense of what's going on. But this one is really solid. It's another one that I don't play that often, but then when I come back around to it, I'm just like, damn, why am I not playing this more? It's it's not speed metal, but it's definitely a little quicker paced, a little faster pacing to it. Very good songwriting. Everything works well. Yes, the vocals have an accent to them, but that's okay. Kind of a cool, different cover concept. I can dig it.
It's a photo, right, of an art piece.
I guess so. That's my guess. And I'm sticking to it. They made one other album a year or two after this one. Yeah. Let's see. I've got the info pulled up here. Folks have not heard of this
Kiss of Death, right?
Kiss of Steel.
Kiss of Steel, yeah.
Yeah, this one is 85 and Kiss of Steel was 86. I've heard that one, and it never quite clicked with me. But to be fair, I only heard it 2 or 3 times. I didn't sit and really spin it a lot. So might have not... given it enough of a chance. But this the debut one from Steel Angel, one of those just kind of the overlooked ones. Stop talking about sortilege. There's nothing wrong with sortilege. If you like sortilege, good for you. But there are some other ones in France that will actually, for my money, outrank the sortilege album. So
that's one of them.
And this is one of them, absolutely. So Steel Angel, one to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, it's a really great album, and it has also some kind of epic qualities to it, I think, which is a little bit really cool. And the second album, I think it's sort of 3/4 the album that this one is. It's a bit more commercial, but it has some really great songs. Way more rare, unfortunately, but I don't know, maybe it's reissued. So
let's see. I think I just saw there was some kind of. There is an anthology that came out, although even the anthology is 10 years old at this point, so that might even be a little tricky to find.
Yeah.
But there was a bootleg CD that had both albums on it, and which is what I had at one point. I think it had both albums. Maybe it was only the second album because it had a slipcase to it, kind of like the Dark Quarterer self-titled bootleg CD.
Yeah, that's I know the series you're talking about.
Yeah,
infamous series.
Yep. That's the one I had at once upon a time. But yes, Steel Angel has finally gotten mentioned on YouTube. I can check that off my list. I have 134 more things to do, and then I can retire from making videos.
Did that come with a complimentary sweater and thing of red wine too? Sorry, it's French. Anyway, I'm next.
I'm not going to dignify that with a reply, good sir.
Okay, this is my last one. I'm out. I'll be here listening, taking notes, and monitoring the chat. And this is a total cheat, because these 2 albums are very speed metal. But I felt they kind of followed the same path that Halloween did, but this one a bit more symphonic. think Alan knows where I'm going here. We got Blind Guardian, Battalions of Fear, and Follow the Blind. Obviously, the one after this is the one I really would have wanted to pick, but it was just outside of the 80s. So, yeah, I mean, Blind Guardian, German band, very influential. Like I said, they kind of followed in the path of Halloween, meaning these early releases are very speed metal oriented. They got a lot more sophisticated, streamlined, symphonic as they went forward. But yeah, I've felt that as far as European heavy metal goes, you really cannot mention Blind Guardian. They're huge. They're absolutely enormous band, and still to this day, putting out records. I mean, their latest record, I know Alan wasn't a huge fan, but it was kind of what the fans want type of thing. And they're still a massive. So Blind Guardian, Battalions of Fear, Follow the Blind, speed metal records, I know, but still what they went on to do was way more in line of the Halloween blueprint for sure. They just were a lot more orchestrated, I think, than Halloween were moving forward. So
yeah, it's easy to compare them to Halloween, but they really aren't that similar when you stop and think about it. Like those early ones are, sticking to more of a power metal a speed metal style. And by the time you're getting, to albums, 4, 5, 6, they're going a little more symphonic in direction. So they're always kind of there parallel to Halloween, but not really doing the same thing when you stop and line them up. But yeah, excellent band.
Did you talk about? I had to go to the bathroom. Did you talk about the debut, the first one?
Yeah, I couldn't pick the one though I really wanted to pick because these two were the only ones in the 80s. But I mean, they're speed metal records, sort of, and there's no denying the stamp these guys put on heavy metal in Europe.
Oh yeah. I think my cousin had the second one when it came out, and we listened to it, and we were so blown away by it because it sounded like the first Halloween album, and it's one of the reasons which Keeper of the Seven Keys never became that super special to me, because at the same time my cousin had the second Blind Guardian one.
Yeah, they got you a little further down the road than that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is certainly not my typical preferred style, but I have a weak spot for Blind Guardian, to be honest.
Sure. Well, they're great. Yeah. I mean, there's no denying the style, and it's great.
I mean, the third one, what's it called?
Tales from the Twilight World.
Oh yeah,
that's one I wanted to pick. That's a very transitional record for them.
That one is amazingly good.
It is.
And then I remember actually, what's the sixth one? The blue one.
Nightfall in Middle Earth.
Nightfall in Middle Earth. Oh, I heard that when one of those periods in my life when I listened to very little metal, because we had a radio show in my hometown of Västerås. We were doing tied to our old fanzine, Pi Mag. We had Pi Radio, and the local record shop gave us records to promote on every show. And then the games, Blind Guardian, ha ha ha, so funny. I used to like them when I was like young 5 years ago. And I
5 years ago,
yeah. I was like cocky 25, and and I put it on, and I was blown away by that album. I mean, Nightfall in Middle Earth is so.
That's the first Blind Guardian album I ever had. That was the first one I bought.
Yeah, and every other band or album who's tried to copy that style, I could never get into. But I mean, Nightfall in Middle Earth is one of my secret shames. I just love that album.
Oh, there's no shame in that.
There's no shame in that game. That's a good one, man.
Oh yeah.
And if you like it, there's no shame in it anyway. It's just the way it is. All right, Dan, I'm gonna run up and get another drinky poo, and I'll be right back. It's all up to you, man.
No, I'm finished with that. Okay, I actually found the album I was planning on talking about last round. It's another German one, and it's one of those. Oh God, it's a special one, and it's a band called Sacrifice. Because what could be more metal than misspelling your band name to stick out from all the other sacrifices? How many sacrifices are there? There's like
lots, but there's only one sacrifice.
There's only one sacrifice. I mean, the normal sacrifice we have like Canada, Japan, Sweden,
Let's find out. I'm over on I'm on Metal
there's so
Archives
many.
right now. Let's find out.
Oh, yeah.
Sacrifice. Band's name Sacrifice. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 that are called
Okay.
just Sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
And then the others that have the word sacrifice included, as like a 2 or 3 part. Yeah, that just keeps going.
I'm pretty sure there's only one sacrifice.
I'll double check, but I believe you're right.
Yeah.
And I agree. If you
Don't
if you were
make
an
me a liar
80s band and you did not
on the
spell
internet.
something incorrectly, you were doing it wrong.
Or put umlauts
Or-
on it when they don't need to be there.
Oh yeah.
That would count. That would count. That's still a grammatical error. That would count. One sacrifice. Only one pops
Like
up immediately.
Metallurgy, as we say in Sweden.
Right.
Or Motorhead.
Right.
I'm so glad Motorhead did it first so that we don't have to attribute that to Motley Crue.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but anyways, Sacrifice. Sacrifice. This German band, they only released this mini album. I'm not even aware of any singles or compilation tracks or anything. And I think this EP is amazing. And the amazing thing about it, it is so raw. This is batshit crazy. The guitars are wild, but especially the vocals is some of the most insane non-black metal shit I've heard. And I think this was released, it must have been like 85 or recorded between July 27 and 29th. It doesn't say a year. I don't know. It could be 86 and being dated. But
Metal Archives has 84.
Yeah, 84 sounds a lot. Sounds very.
They probably spelled it that way to stand out from the rest. Because wasn't there a Japanese sacrifice as well?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We just counted on Metal Archives. There are 12 different sacrifices.
Yeah. So they did that to stand out.
I wouldn't bet on that, but
they just can't spell English.
No. Well, we'll leave that to history's downheap. I don't know. But no, seriously, the thing that makes this album so special, one of the amazing things, is the vocals, because this guy is absolutely batshit crazy. I have never, in any other traditional 80s metal band, heard of such an insane screamer. This sounds like Pelle Dead when he's singing for Morbid and Mayhem. Sort of course, sort of mixed with Udo or other German screamers, but when he's at his most intense, he's just insane, and the guitars are really wild, and it's just a 4-song mini. I love every single song on this, and it's really primitive, but all 4 songs are unique. They have their own distinct feature, and a song like When the Wolf Cries, that could be a Vatane track, right? I think. At least the title, not the music. But even like Give Me Your Love is cool. The Holy War, opening Lady Killer is wild guitars, and the screams, man. The way this guy sounds when he's singing, it's insane. Ace G, if you're seeing this, my love to you. This is. It's not going to be for everyone. I haven't heard anyone else but me singing the praises of this mini, but I think it's, if you like unique stuff, special standout stuff with crazy wild vocals, check it out. It's a unique, and the style is very very Euro metal, very German metal, but none of the tracks are boring or repetitive. It's cool, wild, early 80s metal, and it's a very special one. It's a private pressing, but it's not super rare. I don't think it has been reissued, actually. It's one of those, it's so overlooked that no one has yet tried to reissue it. I know there's a Stockholm store who's had this in their stock for like 10 years, and no one still hasn't bought it yet. But it's one of those privates which is, it's possible to find for, I don't know, $50 or something. Yeah. So check it out.
Someone at No Remorse Records is not doing their homework.
No.
Or High Roller.
High Roller's got so much in the wagon, but yeah, no, that's a cool pull, Dan. Yeah, I haven't played those songs in ages and ages, but I just kind of.
You have it.
I don't have the original. No, I
Mm.
just have someone burned a copy of it for me. But yeah, I remember the vocals. I actually just checked my notes on it, and it's like song's okay, but yeah, vocalist sounds like he should sing like in a band. Like I literally was like, sounds like he would be perfect for a band like Enemy or Flames of Hell. And just that
Yeah, but
really
it's
just
it's almost like more Norwegian black metal, but in
Mhm.
a crazy German way. I think
Yep.
it might have been part of the same bootleg slipcase CD bootleg series.
Could be.
Yeah.
Apparently, they show this record in the movie The Gate. That's very random and strange, but
Huh.
good call
This
there, Peter.
record?
Apparently,
Seriously?
Crazy.
crazy.
That okay. I'm gonna make a note about that then.
That's cool.
All right, Alan.
All right, I'm going to hop over to the Netherlands next. It's my turn to show a reissue. I've tried to get the original of this.
God, I'm surrounded by posers tonight. What's going on here? I'm kidding, of course. Kidding.
I've bid and bid and
Itching to go to my record shelf
Yeah.
and,
Yeah,
and pwn you.
just shit my pants if I saw that shelf. Yeah.
yeah. I'm still chasing the original on this one, but it got a reissue a while back, not very long ago, I don't think, and it's a pretty good reissue. It's Future Tense, Condemned to the Gallows. Very cool one. The original EP, it's got a pretty raw sound to it. It's a little more aggressive than a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight. It's not black and death thrash or anything like that. But yeah, again, you're getting some definitely kind of more evil sounding screams and things. It's got a little bit more of that kind of basement dungeon production about it, which I'm sure was done because they had a recording budget of like $117.33 or something.
Mhm.
But it works for the music. It actually fits the tone of it overall quite well. It's one that I've always liked. It's unfortunately become a little bit of one of those cult darlings. So people kind of know about it. It also, and let me double check here. They were on I want to say they were on a compilation album.
Metal Massacre.
Was it 5?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah. They were one of the first non-American bands featured
Oh, yeah.
on the Metal Massacre series. So they have that one little, footnote of fame that has made a lot of people kind of, track it down, which is why it's a little hard to get and a little bit pricey at this point, because folks that, try to like, oh, I want to get all the records featured on the Metal Massacre series. There are sick little monkeys out there who do that kind of thing. I don't know any of them personally. I'm just saying I've heard of it. Yeah, they Future Tense is on their list. They've picked up the Condemned to the Gallows because they did manage to get onto a Metal Massacre volume. But
all songs on the mini are much better than the song on I think it's this Nightmare, which is on the compilation.
That's a good question. I don't remember. 5 is not a volume I take out and play very often.
From the Battle of Metal demo, I think.
I'll go check in a second and see. But,
but anyway, the mini is much better than that song.
It is. It's much better because it was one when I first heard Metal Massacre. I was like, yeah, it's okay, but it didn't shoot to the top of my must-hear list. And then when I heard this later, it's just like, oh, that's the same band. Wow, this is really cool. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's a little more raw, a little more, a little faster, a little more aggressive than stuff like Proud or Heavy Load, but staying in that Euro metal zone, Future Tense, good one for you to check out.
Oh, I could talk about that band for hours. I mean, when I discovered that mini, bought it from on a record show in Stockholm like 20 years ago or something, and it just, the darkness of it blew me away. And I want to point out, this is not like Sodom Destruction thrash or anything.
No,
it's German heavy speed. It's heavy metal and speed metal that isn't power metal, and but it's so dark. It's like a more not running wild, but it's just like a satanic feel to it. And I mean, all 5 songs are great, are very unique. There's like the speed song, the heavy, doomy, satanic song, the instrumental, and it's one of those best arguments for why the Mini album is the ultimate format for metal. And now it's one of those albums I'll take to my grave. It's such a dark and true Euro metal or basic evil metal classic.
It is. Yeah. And I just checked in. Yes, Dan, you're right. Nightmare was the track they had featured on Metal Master 5. Unfortunately, they got a little overshadowed with Voivod and Omen and Overkill and Fate's Warning and Metal Church.
What Omen song was on that?
And Halloween. And all on it at the same time. If that's coming through, that's me. I'll get that off in a second. The Omen song is Torture Me. Really good one. Yeah, the side I looked it up on, sorry, had something playing in the background.
It's basically more or less the weakest song on that amazing 11 out of 10 compilation. But, I mean, from that subset, it's a really cool band.
Yep.
All right, Dan, you're back.
Okay, let's see what I have. Should we do Germany or should we do Italy? Let's do something different. This is Germany again, and it's not another heavily Accept or Running Wild influenced band, but still a very typical, or not typical, but it's a quite unique band actually. It's a German band called Tempest. And unfortunately, very much unfortunately, this was their only sole original release, which was a 12-inch 2-tracker. I think they were from Berlin. I'm not sure, but this band, Tempest, they sort of belong in the prog metal genre, but they do not sound the least bit like Watchtower or not even their homeboys like Siege even or the later Death Row stuff. It's you could sort of in a weird way compare them to some of the stuff sort of reminds me of Fate's Warning, but at the same time it's completely different. I mean, if you look at the lineup shot, once again, lineup shots tell so much about
they do.
Yeah.
No Hamburglar, no interest.
No, this chill metal dudes hanging out at the Rock Cafe somewhere in Germany and produce their own private Mini. And once again, the vocals are very special. This is not at all the sort of like growly or raw Udo Dirk Schneider derivatives or anything like that. And it sounds really laid back and serious. And the harmonies on this one is amazing. This is really lengthy, sort of power thrash tracks, but it's all pieced together in a very unique way, which I've never heard any US band or Asian bands or whatever doing in the same way. It's a weird, a European youth cafe band inspired by Fate's Warning, like early Fate's Warning, but with very Euro-sounding vocals and amazing harmonies in it. And they were included. They had a couple of tracks included on a number of compilation albums. Some of these really rare DNS Records compilations have a few of the tracks. They made a whole bunch of demos, chock full of amazing, epic, progressive metal of a very unique sort. And I think it was re-released on a CD or even a double CD, which the band released themselves, which is really fucking hard to find because they didn't have a proper distributor. I even met this band actually at Keep It True Festival a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
They didn't have any CDs even then.
That Keep It True show, I always see like clips on YouTube and stuff. It looks like a good fucking fest to go to.
Yeah, you should both go.
I would
Definitely.
love to.
Yeah. It's a really,
Alan, let's plan it next year. Let's do it.
Satan's hosts are coming, so you have to go. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? No, but anyway, yeah. Well, Tempest is a really cool maxi. It's kind of hard to describe the sound of this band. It's what makes it very European is basically how they make progressive metal that sounds unique in a sort of home. It sounds homes. It's tight and everything, and it still sounds sort of homespun and down to earth. It's not weirdness for weirdness sake. It's not time changes just to be progressive. It's amazingly catchy and smart songwriting without boasting. And this is not really some vinyl or anything. It's a private pressing, and it will cost you $20. Yeah, basically.
Oh, cool. I've seen that one mentioned before, but yeah, no, that one I've never heard.
All right, Alan.
All righty. Back to Italy. One more here. Yeah. Italy, there's, like Dan said before, lots of cool stuff. Folks in the chat have mentioned a lot of cool bands. I usually gravitate towards, the doomier side of stuff, the Black Holes and the Requiems and such. This band is nothing like that. It's a little earlier than some of those bands with 84, but it's a really cool, it's another, I guess, mini album technically. Danger Zone with Victim of Time. Kind of a weird cover.
Yeah.
But again, this kind of weird cover to me always screams Euro metal. It's just like, I'm not completely sure what's going on here. If it's, just a little too avant-garde for me to understand, or if the artist was just like, the drummer's kid sister and something didn't quite come together. But yeah, this one is pretty good. Again, they're singing in English, which makes it a little easier, to wrap my brain around. And it's actually, relatively up-tempo. It's not speed metal, but they're going faster. Lots of good melodies to it. Just really solid all-around playing here. And I know I've used that kind of description for a lot of albums tonight, but to me, that's what Euro metal very much is. It's one that I don't see turn up a lot, especially here in the States, simply because it's, very kind of obscure mini album from 1984 released in Italy. The band eventually did a couple more. They did some full lengths, but not until like 2011, 2012. And I have no idea what those sound like. I didn't even know they existed until preparing for stuff tonight. But yeah, this was one that, again, I heard, heard about through the Corroseum website, went on the want list, looked for it forever, eventually got this one crossed off the want list, and just a really solid listen. It is a little odd by Italian standards, though, in that it doesn't sound odd. It doesn't have as much of the kind of weird vibes about it that you associate with a lot of Italian stuff. This sounds like it could have been playing in the same city as Steel Angel in France, or some other more Central European country. If you told me, this was like a Netherlands release, wouldn't have batted an eye. So like, okay, if you say so. It lacks some of the unusual Italian qualities, but that also makes it stand out among the Italian lineup. So it kind of works for them.
Okay. That is one of those Italian albums that makes me speechless. It's one of those that made me being a almost complete collector of Italian metal. It's one of those 11 out of 10 minis. And one thing that makes it stands out a bit from other Italian bands and albums is that the vocals are amazing. For as much as I love Italian steel, the vocals can sometimes be a bit iffy, not outright bad, but sort of primitive and the weakest link in the chain. The vocals on Danger Zone is amazing. And the songwriting, this is goosebumps metal. These are songs that stick in your heart and mind. Like all 5 of them or is it 6? 6 maybe, I don't know. Sorry.
Yes. I think it's 6 on that one.
Yeah, I think it's 6, yeah. Actually, I think I used to have that album actually as something I bring up when I'm trying to convince people that weird underground 80s metal albums that you never heard of can be good. Oh, you want proof? Well, listen to Danger Zone. So that is the perfect example of that one. I have never played that album to someone who didn't love it when they heard it the first time. So
Very
It's
cool.
very, very special one for me. Unfortunately, the later stuff they did was in completely different sound. So
I was about to ask because I figured you
Yeah.
were familiar with it, and I've never checked it out. That's a shame.
The
But
unreleased full length from the late 80s is basic, commercial, the commercial end of Eurometal, and the new stuff sounds nothing like the EP, unfortunately.
well, phooey. But I'll save my money for something else then. At least that was good to know.
All right, Dan, you're back.
I'm back. Okay.
You're back.
After this, I need to go to the shelves and start picking up stuff. Or see
I'm
what
getting to the
hell
bottom
I
of my stack.
picked.
I've got one album and 3 singles left to show, or sorry, 2 singles. So we're
Well,
getting
we could stay actually in Italy. I did pick out a few Italian bands. Which label would you associate with Italian metal, Alan? If you pick a record label, which is the most Italian of all Italian metal labels?
Fair question. The one that always jumps to mind right away is Minotauro.
Oh yes, of course.
But yeah,
we always.
There's which label did the? I think the call number is EYE. They did the steel
Metal Eye.
Metal Eye. That would be my second one. Yeah, for stuff a little earlier in the decade.
Yeah, but anyway, Minotauro Records was a cult Italian label, which is mostly known for, releasing the Def SS stuff when Def SS went away, and of course the Paul Shane stuff. But I mean, they had a lot of traditional metal, and I think the most underrated of all the releases, and one of my favorite traditional heavy metal or Euro metal releases they did was actually this band Revenge. I don't think we need to go to Metal Archives and see how many Revenge there are in the world. I don't really care. This is probably my favorite one. It has an amazing photo sleeve of post-apocalyptic warriors dragging slave queens in front of the fire. It's as metal can be. And this is a mini album, 5 tracks. It's the only thing they released, as far as I know, apart from demos, obviously. It's very, very, it's very Judas Priest influenced, but not in a total like copycat way. But you can hear the Priest is strong with this one. Yes, and the songs are super catchy. I mean, this is one of those perfect mini albums where each of the 5 songs are amazing. I mean, Don't Play With the Fire is an amazing opening track. The title track, Hot Zone, From Heaven to Hell. It's a really ballsy and very metal to the bone. I did say that they sound a lot like Judas Priest, but they have their own sound. They don't sound like a boring copycat band at all. It's a really, really cool, lost little Euro gem, which happens to be from Italy this time and not from Germany or Holland. Italian metal is often overlooked because everyone thinks Dark Sound or Black Hole or Paul Shane or whatever.
Yep.
But they had their fair share of really great traditional metal ones. Danger Zone being the absolute best of all of those traditional ones. This is one of the even more classic Euro metal sounding ones in my head, or my head canon at least. And it's highly recommendable. I'm not sure if it's been reissued or anything, but it's not super expensive. I mean, it's $50 maybe, I don't know. But it's a highly recommended. If you're going to pick up 10 Italian 80s records, this should be one of them, definitely.
Very cool. Yeah,
the reason they're overlooked is probably because of their distribution.
Oh yeah, This probably no US distribution. No.
Zero. I've never even heard that record. Never seen it. Never heard of it.
Yeah, Italian stuff did not get circulated much, especially in the US. I don't know how its European distribution was, but yeah, the few things I got on Minotauro, Again, I think they were all from Al Spremo. He had some kind of connections in Europe that he could get stuff from those labels in the early '90s and still sell it for a good price over here. So that was huge.
All right, Alan.
All righty, let's go back to the Netherlands yet again. A lot of cool Netherlands bands. So this one is not necessarily the best album, but I have a soft spot for the band. It is Vault with No More Escape. If nothing else, even if you don't dig the music, you've got like a bad watercolor cover image of a dinosaur attacking a couple of cave people in a cave.
We're about to bone.
Which is split into and the cave is split in two by like a giant fault line. So there is nothing that you could possibly want added to this cover. You've got your cave people there. One of them, I guess the guys, very kind of Conan-ish thing going on. The number of things that are anatomically incorrect about this dinosaur, I could write a dissertation about, but it doesn't matter because he rules.
Ask the doctor.
All right.
Of dinosaur poop.
I love the way that they worked their logo kind of into all the stalactites and stalagmites.
Doctor of dinosaur shit. I love it.
But yeah, I think the real take-home message we can all get from this is if you're when you're choosing your cave to dwell in after the Armageddon occurs and we're all in the post-apocalyptic universe, don't choose the cave that's split in two by a fault line because it really limits your escape when you get attacked by the subterranean dinosaur. So, hey, survival tips.
And that subterranean dinosaur is obviously a baby because you look at the perspective of the two people, they're not that tiny up against that monster. So it's like a baby triceratops sort of thing.
Hey, they're still worried about it though. You can tell. I mean, the subtle shading and character development with the two dots that make up their entire face really tells a story.
Yeah.
But anyway, on to Vault. They made this one album and a single. I like both of them quite a bit. They've got a little bit of a gruffer sound. Again, it's not super raw. It's not meant to be, Venom or Bathory or anything like that. Just a little bit more lo-fi, a little rougher around the edges. I can see this maybe, and I'm just reaching here, this might have been the kind of thing that would have been popular with like a European biker scene that has got a little bit more of that kind of vibe about it, where it's just a little bit more tougher sounding than some of the stuff we've been showing. But still a cool band. This one, what have we got on here? Suicide is a cool song. Leader of the Pack is kind of dated sounding.
Is that a cover?
It actually isn't. It is not the Shangri-La's song from the 1960s. Great song, by the way. Love the Shangri-La's. They were a great girl group but
didn't Twisted Sister cover that song?
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Somebody else covered it in the 80s, I think, and had a minor hit with it. Or maybe that was the Twisted Sister.
That might have been
cover.
Twisted Sister. Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to like Too Young to Fight, The Gambler, No More Escape. Yeah, just good stuff. You've got some black and white shots of the band. Again, this is the kind of thing to me that just screams Euro metal. Probably on a pretty tight budget to get this made. You're not getting top of the line, state of the art production values. You're certainly not getting the leading cover artists of the day. This is not Hypnosis kind of material right here. But the whole package just works, together. And so, especially if some of the bands we've talked about are a little too clean or a little too polished for you, then Vault should vault to the top of your list of things to check out. I even got a pun from the band's name worked in. I'm happy now.
To me, I think that it was almost a bit too crude. The Vault Mini. I haven't listened to it in ages, but last time I listened to it, I think I found it almost a bit too rough for my taste, which does say a lot. What I do love is the 7-inch. I think the 7-inch is one of the lost treasures of European 7-inch singles. Actually, because both tracks are very different. There's a really speedy, sort of like insanely fast track, and then this sort of like a more intricate track. But the 7-inch, buy it if you see it. I mean, it's one of those really crazy, wild sounding singles, and both tracks slay.
Yeah, the single is better, and unfortunately, you're not going to see the single anywhere.
No. I mean, it's not one of those. It's not like the Brain Fever 7-inch or anything. I mean, if it turns up, you could probably get it an affordable copy. But it's I love it.
All right, Dan, you're up.
I was thinking about what to talk about. Should I go? Yeah, let's go back to Germany because this is one of the ones I have to talk about. When we're talking about what defines Eurometal and German metal, there are, of course, the classic record labels. We talked about Wishbone earlier. We talked about the Dutch or Belgian Mausoleum. For German metal, we have the labels Bonebreaker and Earthshaker, which actually had the same owner. I don't know why they were two different labels. They had the same owner. They were operating in the same time. It was this guy, Alex Thoboil, or something like that. He later had Shark Records as well, who brought, among other things, Sepultura to Europe.
Yeah, but, I've got a Shark Records tape with the first two, the EP and the full length Sepultura on it. Yeah.
Yeah. But earlier in the 80s, he had two labels called Earthshaker and Bonebreaker. And I love all albums released by this. I think there were only like 5 or 6 or 7 albums per label. I have all of them, and I like them all, even the bad ones. But one of my favorite ones, and one of the most overlooked German Eurometal albums is, I think, Invader. Children of War, which was released on the Bonebreaker label, and a very metal lineup, of course. And I think the sleeve is sort of it's so bad it's good.
It's so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just darkened eyes and a knife and the logo, and you're there. I mean, it could have been so much worse. I mean, keep it simple, stupid. I mean, it looks evil, and I mean, it looks like it would be one of those typical bad German metal albums, like all those Gamma, Hot Blood releases. But this actually stands out. I think like 8 out of the, how many is it? 10 songs? Yeah, it's a classic 10-song lineup of tracks. Almost every track is bloody awesome, and each of them unique, really catchy stuff, really cool vocals. I mean, they have their epic stuff like March of Victory. They have one of the greatest song titles ever, together with Black Task, Sex and Destruction. These guys had Black Sex.
It's better. It's not as good as Better Watch Your Balls.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, this is better. Which is actually a really great track as well. State Penitentiary for Mental Disorder, and it's so good. I mean, this title track, Children of War. It's one of those, because so many German metal albums were produced between the years 84 to 86. There were, I mean, hundreds of them. We have the classic Gamma labels like Scratch and Hot Blood and all those labels, and of course these guys as well, Bonebreaker, and so I mean, the German 80s scene was sort of oversaturated. Mm-hmm. You kind of get the impression that every half-bit demo band got to release an album, which has sort of given 80s German metal a bad name, I think, at least when it comes to traditional metal, like all these Accept influence bands, and I love a lot of that stuff. I love some of the good bad stuff. This is not good bad stuff. This is just great. I mean, it's super German, but it's not a total. It's not a total Accept clone or anything. It's not a total Running Wild clone. Yet not super original, but the songwriting is great. It's memorable stuff. Great vocals. Super German, super European, would not have been released in the US in a million years. and totally overlooked. It looks so basic and dumb, but I mean, it's been reissued as well, so there's no excuses. Invader, the Corroseum recommends. No.
Right on. All right, Alan.
All right, I want to switch. I want to wrap up tonight with a couple of singles. The first one, we've waited long enough to mention them. Can't talk Euro metal without covering a little bit of getting a little randy.
The mileage that shirt has gotten since he bought it. I mean, you can see his boner from space when he found that online.
My iron was not sad that night. But yes, what can you say about Randy that we haven't said before? Well, they didn't always call themselves Randy. So some fun facts here. They did work under a couple of other names. They were originally known as Grandy and changed to Randy because somehow that was an improvement.
Yeah, well, fuck
and,
yeah.
But they eventually did move on. They understood Randy wasn't quite getting them to the top of the world, so they eventually switched and continued to operate under the name of Slip and Slide. This band had 3 chances to name themselves.
Wow.
And they messed up every single time.
The band meetings must have been a fucking tour de force of shitty names to come at that.
I don't, but and it's so weird because everything else about it is so glorious. First off, for Aaron, you have not one,
3
not 2,
mustaches.
You have the you have the hat trick.
Trifecta.
You have the trifecta hat trick of mustaches right here. Absolutely. So this is working. You've got a carnivorous alien anthropomorphic head of lettuce, eating someone's hand too. I mean, you get shades of early Cannibal Corpse going on here with yikes. Nothing about this should work, and then you play it, and these are just 2 of the best Euro metal songs you can ever hear. Shadows Are Falling, just has this great catchy, very melodic kind of chorus to it. It just moves at a very steady pace all the way through. Nice little slow kind of gallop, and then you flip it over, and you get the flip side. Hold on, I'm trying to take it out so I can show both sides. So yeah, you got Shadows Are Falling with that. And then you flip it over to, The Beast, and it picks up the pace. It's a quick song. And once again, just, hooks everywhere, great vocals to it. Both of these songs will stay in the back of your brain until the day you die, and possibly for a week or so thereafter. It's phenomenal. That's, yes, something that looked like they packaged it like this. And once you crack it and it's open inside, it's got 2 of the finest examples of Euro metal from the entire decade. There's compilations of the material, anthologies have been put out by a couple of different labels, so you can hear both these songs plus some demos and live stuff. Not that hard to get a hold and check out some of the Randy stuff. And if you look on certain Mexican t-shirt sales sites,
it's funny because that cover is like an artist rendering of the cover. It's not the same cover art.
Yeah. No, they definitely took it and kind of made it their own interpretation of it, which I'm ordering it, from Mexico. I'm not going to, complain whatsoever. It was awesome. And hey, if they want to make a real shirt with the original image, I'll order that too. I have no problem with this. So guys, look, I'm living proof you're losing out on your merchandising fees.
I first thought you had a Death SS t-shirt because I only saw the S's. I was like, oh, cool. Italy, man.
Yeah, not quite. I'm not sure if that would be more cool or less cool. We're just going to say it's a lateral move.
Equally cool, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, that single, I remember, to this day, I'm sorry to say, I do not own that single. I probably made...
It's a bitch to track down.
I know, and I think I probably made like the first internet review of it many years ago, one of those really early Corroseum reviews. But
yes,
I'm kicking myself to this day that maybe like 20 years ago, something like that, 20, 15 years ago. This guy on a Stockholm record show had it, and he showed it to me, and he wanted like 600 kroner for it, which is like $60 or $70 or something like that. And back then it was like, oh, that is so much money.
Yeah.
And to me, no, this looks too cool. I've been fooled before. I know when stuff looks this cool, it's not going to be as cool. It's not going to be as good as it looks. And so I passed on it. And I think I passed on it twice. I mean, this is one of those record shows which came like once a year, and he had it the first year. No. He had it the second year. No, I don't believe this. And then I think the next year I heard it and was amazed, and then it was gone. And I haven't found an affordable copy since then. But I do want to speak out about the reissue albums. I think I only have the first one that No Remorse did with the demos, and the demos are awesome. And I think one of my favorite tracks, if you buy some of the reissue stuff, check out the track Nightmare. It is such a hit. It's a really good one. I mean, as an album, it's one of Denmark's best. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I have a bone to pick with that No Remorse reissue because the printing quality on it is shit.
Yeah.
It was one of the first things they did. I mean, it was an early release for No Remorse, but in terms of the booklet, the way they reproduced the artwork, it looks like crap. It looks like a bad, cheap Russian bootleg. And it pissed me off even more at the time because some other people from other labels had talked to that band around the same time and offered to do it. So, Randy had multiple options on the table. They chose No Remorse, and No Remorse did a shitty job on the artwork and the booklet for that, which for a while put a bad taste in my mouth about that label. I avoided releases from No Remorse for a few years after that because I was like, I'm not buying anything else from this shit label.
Sacred Outcry.
Now they obviously fixed the quality control issues pretty fast, and they've released a ton of great stuff since then. But I'm just saying, if anybody does want a Randy anthology, you might want to look at the others.
There's a newer one. Yeah.
There's a newer one that has a lot more material on it and different artwork. If you find that original No Remorse one, just understand when you pull it out and look at it, you're going to go, ugh. It looks like it was. It's not dot matrix bad, but it's getting that bad.
Yeah. It's actually No Remorse who did the new one as well. So they
was it?
They knew to correct their errors, which is good.
Yeah, I gotta say too that Halloween, not only should Halloween be giving us some royalty money for as much as we talk about them, Randy is the only other band on this channel that's been mentioned more than Halloween has been fucking Randy, who put out not much. So just saying. I mean, that's the shadow we cast here on Heavy Metallurgy.
Yeah. Well, one last fun trivia tip about the single. Like Dan said, it's very hard to find. It does not show up often. Several of the copies I have seen over the years have library stickers on them somewhere. A lot of these copies that have turned up have been from people going to, I guess, like library sales in Europe, or possibly smuggling them out of libraries in Europe and offering them from sale. And because, they'll still have the little Dewey Decimal kind of stickers stuck either on the labels or on the back of the picture sleeve or even the front of the picture sleeve. So it's one of those cases. A lot of times heavy metal collectors, we want everything to be pristine, ultra mint. Yeah, well, with the Randy single, you might have to resign. Anyone wanting a copy, be prepared that you're probably going to see some that have that kind of barcode sticker on it from an old library catalog, and you can pass on that, of course, and wait for a nicer copy. But you may be waiting a while before you find one that doesn't have that.
I think the fact that you see more library copies than normal like shop copies of it today says a lot about the availability or the lack thereof of this 7-inch. It's a really tricky one, unfortunately.
Yeah, I got lucky. Mine does not have a library sticker on the picture sleeve.
Lucky bastard.
No iron touched it either. Someone didn't iron out the fucking kinks on that one.
Well, there were a couple of creases on the picture sleeve, and it does look like it may have gotten pressed in a pizza. They may have pressed it in a waffle iron, but they kept the iron away from the vinyl.
Yeah.
That's called pulling an Allen, holding out for a better copy. True.
No, I
that.
just got lucky. I would have bought a copy with it. I think I actually was offered a copy that had the library sticker on it, but that was okay. The overall condition was not that good. And the price was
Hold
still
on.
pretty
A
high.
library sticker. What does that mean? Like it was in a fucking library?
Yeah, like how with every book, they have to put one of those things on it that has like the
Dewey Decimal, the Dewey Decimal
yeah,
system.
Yeah. They would have those on the picture sleeves on the records in the library.
So Randy was so important they made it into the library somewhere.
It's like a national treasure of the Netherlands, Dutch library network.
Well, there you go. Fucking
Danish.
fuck me. Yeah.
Danish. Sorry, I'm bad to do that with Dutch and Danish. My bad.
Yes.
All right.
I made it 3 hours without mixing those two up. That's good for me.
All right, Dan. Do you have anything to round us out with here?
You mean like a record or a final speech on the subject
final
of
speech.
Eurometal?
Let's talk about Eurometal.
Yeah,
in the
because
final.
I mean,
or if you've got one last record you want to.
If you got a last record, show that too. Whatever you want to do.
I have lots of last records. I think I've picked out the most important ones. So we've been going for over 3 hours. So I think we could round up, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, well, I picked Eurometal as a subject because it's one of my favorite styles. It's not a genre, but it is, I guess you could say, a style. I mean, I said I use it as a descriptor of how bands from all times and places in the world sometimes sound like. And there, some of my favorite albums are very much the definition of this style. And I mean, Accept having been one of the bands that formed my metal youth. And I think it's a very underrated style because so much was produced in this part of the world. There's a lot of mediocre stuff. And to be honest, I mean, to wrap up on a sad note, there are a lot of mediocre Eurometal. And some of the mediocre stuff is amazingly cool, and I like a lot of the mediocre stuff. Some of it is bad mediocre, some of it is good bad. But a lot of it was produced, and it's an interesting jungle of 80s metal to dissect. And there's a lot of unique traits in the Euro sound that sort of developed post the early new wave heavy metal that made it very special. The vocals, the accents, the sort of sturdy, shugging sound, the way that one track on an album can go in a completely different direction or pace than the one before it. And the sort of the DIY spirit of some of these bands. A lot of classic Eurometal bands who were on not major labels, but real labels, sounds like something that would come out as a private pressing in like the US. Mm-hmm. So if you like that DIY sound, it's a bit of a treasure trove if you dig deep enough in the old Eurometal soil.
Alan, do you want to touch up on anything here before we disembark?
I'll just agree with two quick things. Agree with everything Dan said there. It's very much a cool area to dig into. Once long-term fans, we all get to that point where we've heard a lot of the big stuff. We know the thrash metal giants, and we know the speed metal giants. And we've got all the Maiden and Priests and stuff covered. And you kind of get to the point of where do I go from here? A lot of people just pack up shop and like, well, I guess I've heard most of it, and they kind of stop collecting or stop digging. And there's this whole extra layer that you can dig into with these smaller bands that run on labels just a step or two down. And like Dan said, you're going to hit some mediocre stuff, but there's a lot of really cool music that you can hear. There's so many bands we have not talked about tonight because you can't cover them all at once. Yeah. But oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No. Someone mentioned the German band Attacker a while back in the chat. I would have forgot to pick out one of their albums as an amazing band. And there are lots of great bands that has been mentioned in the chat as well. For me, when I picked out records, I didn't pick necessarily the best European metal albums of the 80s. I tried to pick the ones that were very distinctly European sounding. So there are a lot of European 80s metal albums, and I mean traditional metal albums, not thrash or other styles, which I didn't pick because in my mind they weren't as distinct. They didn't sound Euro enough for this particular stream, but yeah.
Yep. And then I'll wrap up with one last record because and we'll go back to Sweden one last time for one of my favorite songs of all time. And it's funny because when this single made it into collecting kind of circles for the first time, it was actually mistaken for a new wave of British heavy metal band. But it turns out it's a Swedish one. The band is called Scratch.
Oh yeah. And
the song is called Metal Breaker. And if you've never heard it, if you only Google, you should Google several things from tonight. But if you're going to Google one individual song that's not called Turn the Cross Upside Down, Google Scratches Metal Breaker. Very cool 80s kind of looking band logo. The flip side, Before the Rain's okay, but it's a little bit more of a little easier going song. Metal Breaker is one of the anthems that, again, it will stay in my brain until the day I die. They shall play it at my funeral. My sons and daughters and their sons and daughters shall know this song and sing it through the halls of time. It may be the perfect heavy metal song for me. It's one of these little obscure Swedish singles. This was the top item on my want list for years. It took a long time to track down a copy. They're hard to find. They get pretty pricey sometimes, not always, thankfully, but sometimes. This is one of those records that occasionally will show up in news items. It's like someone paid $1,000 kind of thing for a unknown Swedish heavy metal single, but it just really exemplifies all the stuff that is cool and that you can find if you dig around in this kind of scene.
You won't find that one. You find a lot of Randy singles before you find that one.
Probably so. Yeah, this is a tough one to come by, and I am. It is
probably.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
No, it's probably if we don't count a couple of test pressing only singles, it would be the rarest and priciest. At least it used to be priciest Swedish metal 7-inch.
Yeah, it's up. The Gotham City is the only one I can think of that might, be in kind of the same ballpark. But one of the real treasures in my collection. If you tell me tomorrow I get to keep 5 of my records and the rest of them are disappearing for whatever reason,
wood chipper in the wood chipper,
or whatever, this is one of the 5 I keep. And it's only got 2 songs, and only one of the songs is good. That one song is that good that I keep it.
Wow!
Absolutely.
Holy shit! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I could never. I don't think I could ever replace that record in my collection.
Is it because of the song or the thrill of the chase that you have built up behind it?
Oh no, the song. I heard the song before I ever. I heard that song. I'm just like, I must own that record one day, and it took. Let me think. I heard that song. It took me about 9 years from the time I heard that song to the time I got that copy. I spent almost a decade tracking that down.
I almost forgot what it sounded like, that Metal Breaker track, because I don't own the original, unfortunately.
Yeah, there is it has been reissued. There's an anthology CD that's got the single and a few demo tracks on it. So again, anybody that wants to check it out, it's easy to hear on YouTube. You can get it at some place like the Real Heavy Metal Museum in the U.S. for probably like $17. There's no reason to drive yourself nuts, looking for an original if you don't want to. It has the anthology treatment. It's worth checking out. The anthology is back there somewhere. I picked it up too.
Isn't the anthology just like 2 more tracks or something like that?
I think there's
3 more
3
tracks?
Maybe. Yeah, it's like 5 tracks total. It's very short.
We're not talking a double LP worth of material there, but yeah.
No, there. Let's see. I've got it pulled up here. Yeah, you have 5 songs for a total of 17 minutes. That is the Scratch anthology.
Wow. Well, right on. We made it. Everybody, please go check out. And Dan, welcome until Heavy Metallurgy. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you very
us.
much, Marty. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and you're going to be back on again. So start plotting your topic. Hopefully, it'll be a little easier on me, but I can whatever. It doesn't matter.
Keep you in mind next time. Definitely.
Right on.
Yes, but it has been a real treat to have you on, Dan. A lot of folks this week have been very excited, gotten some messages here and there, just like, that's going to be so cool. I've got to catch this episode. We've had a lot of folks show up in the chat tonight being like, yes, I've got to see this guy live. And, Dan and I have just chatted on the Corroseum and text and emails for a long time. So to get to actually talk with you live, face to face, completely thrilled that you agreed to be on. Thank you so much.
No, it's been great fun. Would love to do it again.
Absolutely. You're on the list for sure. And everybody go check out the Corroseum. The link is in the chat, in the description below. I'm sorry. I've had a few shots of Maker's Mark. I'm a little over the edge here, but Dan, it's been a pleasure. You're a great dude. Thank you so much for joining us. And there's been a ton of new subscribers here the last couple of weeks, and a lot of people in the chat tonight that are brand new. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you with us. We have a lot of fun here every Friday night. Also, some show notes. Sunday, I'm hoping to have up a Cannibal Corpse review by Melanie, and Monday there will be a Primordial review up by the professor himself, Alan. We were trying to give you 2 this week because last week we were unavailable. And Wednesday's album club will be discussing the Morning Beloved album Formless. Kellen picked it. It'll be a fun talk. Next Friday is to be determined, but we will have someone on here. There'll be a lot of fun, of course, but please go check out the Corroseum. Go check out Let's Talk Metal. Alan's been killing it. I've been checking your stuff. You've been getting a lot of views, Alan. I'm so psyched. A lot of people love your shit, and it's highly warranted. Alan does another channel called Let's Talk Metal. It's great. If you like his content here on Heavy Metallurgy, you're going to love his own channel too. So go check that out, please.
If you need more Randy in your life.
That's right. You need a little more Randy and some other shit that no one else has heard about. Alan's got you covered for sure. But we're going to jump. Dan, don't hang up. We're going to talk for a second afterwards. There's somebody that wants to meet you that's going to be logging on. But,
cool.
Alan, do you have anything to add before we jump?
No, just again, reiterate one more time. Dan, the Corroseum, I know can be a lot of work and time consuming. You put a lot of effort into it.
Labor of love.
It means a lot to a lot of music fans all over the world. So thank you for all the time and work you have put into that, and not letting it collapse when it went offline or when there were issues with the copyright on the URL and stuff like that. You've always kept it going. You've absorbed stuff from other sites that couldn't keep going. It really is a treasure of a resource, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. That site. There's so many people in the chat tonight have been saying, "Yep, that's another record I would never have heard of without the Corroseum."
There's been multiple people that said that in the chat tonight. I would not have bought that if it wasn't for the Corroseum. So
cool.
I know it's often a thankless job. I mean, you're a fan. You're doing it because you love it. It's something you've been doing for a lot of years. But I think it's easy to lose sight of the fact that the internet, people appreciate it without you not even know them. It's cool. It's cool to get people some feedback.
That is really, really cool to hear, and I appreciate to hear this so much. I don't have any other kind of feedback channel other than the forum. I mean, neither me nor the site uses any sort of social media or anything. I know that the traffic for the website is steadily going up, and has been doing so for many years.
Yeah.
I mean, the forum, activities there is of course a bit lower nowadays because, that's just what happens with forums nowadays. But the site keeps growing, but I don't see that much feed up. I know that it's being used and appreciated, but I can only see that in numbers and not so often in comments. So that makes me so happy to hear that people are enjoying it. Yeah, makes it worthwhile.
Right on. Okay, well, everybody, it's been a lot of fun. Another Friday night. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining us. Don't hang up, like I said. And everybody, you all rule. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be here next week. You all rule. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Grr.